Chapter 35. Under the black robe, Lin Tian's expression was cold. If Pu Shi and Ge Zheng did not speak up, he would not have said a word. Now that he was ready to help, he was being accused of having bad intentions. This made him very unhappy. Elder Pu Shi, let's go. What does the life and death of others have to do with me? He said calmly. Without waiting, Lin Tian walked out of the Array Manipulator Guild. Pu Shi smiled helplessly. The strong were all proud, especially a monster like Lin Tian. He naturally understood how Lin Tian felt when he was bullied like this. Nodding at Ji Yuanshan, Pu Shi also walked out. Seeing Lin Tian leave, the well-dressed young man snorted coldly. Great General, let's go back to the Imperial City, the well-dressed young man said. Ji Yuanshan's expression was gloomy. Looking at the girl in his arms, he seemed to be struggling. Seeing that Lin Tian was about to reach the door, he finally said, "Little brother, please wait." Hearing this, the well-dressed young man's expression changed slightly. Lin Tian stopped and said calmly, "What's the matter?" Pu Shi also stopped and looked at Ji Yuanshan. Ji Yuanshan looked at Lin Tian and suddenly stood up straight. Lowering his head slightly, he said in a low voice, "Little brother, please save this old man's granddaughter." This simple action shocked everyone. Previously, it was Ge Zheng, but now, even the Empire's #1 Great General was bowing to this 16-year-old boy. Great General, you can't. You can't let him save little you. Little you's innocence. The well-dressed young man was anxious. Ji Yuanshan's expression darkened, and he shouted, "Yitong, don't speak nonsense." Ji Yuanshan had been on the battlefield for many years. Even though he was a little old now, the aura he had accumulated over the years was extremely shocking. After being shouted at, the well-dressed young man's expression changed slightly, and he stopped talking. "Little brother, please. This old man only has one granddaughter. Please help her. If you have any requests, just tell me. As long as I, Ji Yuanshan, can do it, I will not refuse." Ji Yuanshan looked at Lin Tian. The entire guild was silent for a while. The finely dressed young man's expression was cold. He stood beside Ji Yu and glared at Lin Tian. His eyes were full of threat, as if he would take Lin Tian's life if Lin Tian agreed to help Ji Yu. This kind of gaze made Lin Tian very uncomfortable. "Some people don't want me to save them, but I insist on saving them," he sneered and said from under the black robe, "Elder Ge, please prepare a room for me." "You." Beside Ji Yuanshan, the finely dressed youth was instantly enraged. However, Ji Yuanshan had already made up his mind. There was nothing he could do. "Thank you, little brother." Ji Yuanshan was overjoyed. "Xiao Fei, prepare the quietest room immediately," Ge Zheng said to the female attendant, then turned to Lin Tian. "Little brother, what materials do you need?" "This old man will choose for you." Lin Tian nodded and said, "Wind cicada root, sandwood ginseng, level 4 demonic beast wind lizard blood, rootless spring." In a moment, Lin Tian reported 6 materials. "Okay, this old man will go now." Nodding to Ji Yuanshan, Ge Zheng quickly walked to the side. The guild was very quiet for a while. Under the black robe, Lin Tian looked at the girl in Ji Yuanshan's arms. He saw that the girl's face was getting paler and paler. Her beautiful eyebrows were almost wrinkled. It was obvious that she was in great pain while unconscious. This scene immediately reminded him of Lin Shi more than a month ago. That day when they escaped to the Green Mountain, Lin Shi also had the same expression. Use your soul power to cover her wounds and temporarily numb her nerves to help her relieve the pain, he said to Ji Yuanshan. Soul power. Ji Yuanshan's face froze. This old man. Seeing Ji Yuanshan's expression, Lin Tian suddenly understood. How could a simple martial artist know how to use soul power? Although everyone had soul power, if they wanted to use it, they would need a special soul cultivation method. This kind of martial art was generally not accessible to ordinary martial artists. Only array manipulators knew how to use it. Shaking his head, Lin Tian took a few steps forward and arrived in front of Ji Yuanshan. Looking at the girl in Ji Yuanshan's arms, he asked, "The wound is in the abdomen, right?" He saw that the blood in the girl's abdomen was the thickest. Yes, it is the abdomen." Ji Yuanshan quickly said. At this time, Ji Yuanshan didn't have the slightest attitude of a great general. He was just a grandfather worried about his granddaughter. Lin Tian nodded. He raised his right hand and pressed the girl's abdomen. What are you doing? The well-dressed youth's face turned cold. He was about to go forward and stop him. Scram! Under the black robe, Lin Tian Lung coldly said. The aura of the 6th level of body refinement was released. Suddenly, the well-dressed youth's face changed, and he stopped in his tracks. Coldly snorting, Lin Tian's right hand suddenly appeared with a silver light. Wang! The silver light flashed, slightly sacred, like the power of the 9 heavens stars pouring down. Such a tyrannical soul power. Even Ji Yuanshan, who wasn't an array manipulator, was moved. Soon after, Ji Yuanshan quickly discovered that Ji Yu's tightly knitted brows slightly relaxed. This, Ji Yuanshan was pleasantly surprised. Looking at Lin Tian again, Ji Yuanshan's eyes had a trace of shock. At this time, Ge Zheng and the maid appeared, arriving at almost the same time. Have you prepared the room? Ge Zheng asked the maid. The maid nodded and respectfully said, Yes, elder. Ge Zheng nodded and handed a small bag to Lin Tian, saying, Little brother, these are the materials I mentioned. Thank you. Lin Tian's voice sounded. After that, Lin Tian didn't need to say anything more. Ji Yuanshan hugged the girl and followed Lin Tian, Ge Zheng, and the others to a room in the Array Manipulator Association. This room was relatively small, but the decorations were very simple. The most important thing was that the air in the room was very clean and the surroundings were very quiet. Put her on the bed. Lin Tiandao. Ji Yuanshan nodded as if he was following orders. He carefully put the girl on the bed in front of him. In a moment, the white bedding on the bed was dyed red. What's next? Little brother, what do you need me to do? Ji Yuanshan said. Lin Tian nodded. He had a good impression of this Ji Yuanshan. Although the other was a great general, he didn't put on airs. Please leave. If I don't say anything, no one is allowed to come in and disturb me. Lin Tian said. Pushi and Ge Zheng nodded. They were both array manipulators and knew that the most taboo thing for an array manipulator was to be disturbed while inscribing runes. Moreover, they knew that the runes Lin Tian was going to inscribe were definitely not ordinary and needed a quiet space. What did you say? At the side, the young man in luxurious clothes had a gloomy expression as he stared at Lin Tian and said, A man and a woman alone in a room. Xiaoyu is even heavily injured and just happens to be unconscious at this moment. How could I allow you to stay here by yourself? Who knows if you'll do anything dirty to Xiaoyu? Don't even think about it. Ge Zheng and Pushi both frowned. Ge Zheng was even more displeased as he said indifferently, Great General. Who is this? Such words don't seem to understand etiquette. Asking Lin Tian to help Ji Yu. At first, it was him and Pushi who asked, but this well-dressed youth repeatedly obstructed and questioned Lin Tian. Even an old-fashioned person like Ge Zheng was a little angry at this moment. The well-dressed youth's words were not only insulting Lin Tian, but also insulting him and Pushi. You! The well-dressed youth's face suddenly became a little livid. Lung Yi Tong! At this moment, Ji Yuanshan's low voice sounded again as he reprimanded the well-dressed youth. Then, Ji Yuanshan saluted Pushi and Ge Zheng before looking at Lin Tiandao. Little brother, I'm sorry. We will go out now. Xiaoyu will be in trouble. Please help her stabilize her injuries. This old man will be very grateful. With that, Ji Yuanshan pulled the well-dressed youth up and strode out. Staring at the back of the well-dressed youth, Ge Zheng snorted coldly. Little brother, if there's anything, just call. Olga and I will be waiting outside. Pushi said. Okay. Lin Tian nodded. Pushi and Ge Zheng retreated and carefully closed the door. In an instant, only Lin Tian and the girl lying on the bed were left in the room. Walking to the side of the bed, the unconscious girl frowned again, without his soul power numbing the wound. She seemed to be in pain. Lin Tian stretched out his right hand, and a ball of soul power rushed out, quickly covering the wound on the girl's abdomen. That night, Xiaoxi had the same expression. You should thank her. After covering the girl's wound with his soul power, Lin Tian took off his black robe and revealed his true body. He took out 2 spirit-gathering rune scrolls from his robes. One of them was the one he carried with him, while the other was the one he created during the Array Manipulation Master examination earlier. It just so happened that it came in handy at this moment. It can be sold for at least 20,000 spirit coins. What a pity, what a pity. Just now, I should have killed that old man Ji. Lin Tian muttered. Although he said so, after hearing the maid's introduction, he really didn't know how to ask. He had been guarding the border for dozens of years, protecting the peace of the Northern Flame country, allowing countless people to live a peaceful life. If he really asked Ji Yuanshan for money, even if he was an array manipulator, he would still be looked down upon. Shaking his head, Lin Tian walked to the side of the bed. Looking at the girl on the bed, although her face was pale, she still looked fresh and refined. She had lost too much blood, but her skin was still white and moist. Especially that soft black hair, it made people want to caress it. Sorry. Coughing twice, Lin Tian stretched out his hand and began to take off the girl's clothes. Having lived 2 lives, this was the first time Lin Tian took off a girl's clothes. Moreover, it was such a beautiful girl. As he slowly took off the girl's clothes, pieces of snow-white skin were exposed. It was extremely tempting. If it wasn't for his strong will, he probably wouldn't have been able to control himself. Calming his breathing, Lin Tian quickly took off all of Ji Yu's clothes. In an instant, a beautiful body appeared in front of Lin Tian. Her neck was round, her waist was slender, and her legs were straight and slender. Although there were some blood stains on her snow-white skin, it still couldn't cover up her radiance. Instead, it made her even more tempting. What a pain! Lin Tian cursed. Chapter 36. To the current Lin Tian, the creation of the yin ink was no longer difficult. He pulled the 6 materials over and poured in his true essence force and soul force. After a few minutes, a 5-colored yin ink was created. Lin Tian nodded. He could start drawing the array pattern now. Sorry for the offense. Looking at the girl on the bed, Lin Tian muttered. His right hand wrapped the yin ink with true essence and slowly pressed down. Finally, his index finger landed on the girl's abdomen. At this moment, a soft touch came from his finger. It was a feeling he had never felt before. Lin Tian couldn't help but tremble slightly. A half-naked girl with a golden figure. Touching such a delicate body was truly a great temptation. Oh! Lin Tian closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and spat out a mouthful of turbid air. Just like that, after 3 breaths, he opened his eyes again. His eyes had become tranquil. Swallow Rain Rune, a peak 2nd-level array pattern. He muttered to himself. His index finger landed on the girl's abdomen and quickly moved. At this moment, his eyes became very calm. The girl in front of him didn't seem to be a girl anymore. Instead, it was just a simple initial scroll. As his index finger drew, soon, a clear array pattern appeared on the girl's flat abdomen. It emitted a faint true essence force and soul force. As if she sensed something strange, the unconscious girl slightly frowned her beautiful brows. Lin Tian didn't care about this. After another pattern was drawn on the girl's abdomen, his 5 fingers began to move together. 5 array patterns appeared from different places and extended in different arcs. 5 Dragon Divine Flash. Buzz! True essence force and soul force surged together. Lin Tian was fully focused. Even though there was an alluring body in front of him, his eyes were incomparably clean and focused. At this moment, his eyes were only focused on the pattern he was drawing. As time passed, beads of sweat gradually appeared on Lin Tian's forehead. Compared to the Martial Fusion Rune and Spirit Gathering Rune, the Swallow Rain Rune's level was undoubtedly much higher. It was his first time drawing such a pattern. Moreover, it was using a human body as a scroll. The difficulty was naturally high. Let's just treat this as a test. Lin Tian muttered to himself. He didn't care about the cold sweat on his forehead, nor did he care about the gradual lack of true essence. At this moment, he began to circulate the 4 extreme scripture, earnestly carving array patterns while forging new true essence. Soon, 15 minutes passed. With the passage of time, The sweat on Lin Tian's forehead had reached its limit, and a feeling of dizziness came from his head. Even though he had been operating the 4 extreme meridians, the forging of his true essence could not keep up with the consumption. Just like that, another quarter of an hour passed. 15 minutes later, with a buzzing sound, just as Lin Tian was about to be unable to hold on any longer, the Swallow Rain rune was finally completed. A rune that was about 1.5 inches in diameter appeared on the young girl's abdomen. Lines of runes extended out like tentacles that extended to the young girl's chest and waist. Lin Tian wiped the sweat off his forehead and instantly felt much more relaxed. Both his left and right hands reached out at the same time and landed on the spirit-gathering rune scrolls that he had placed on both sides of the young girl's abdomen long ago. "Open," he said in a low voice. With a buzzing sound, the 2 spirit-gathering rune scrolls trembled slightly. Instantly, rich spirit chi of heaven and earth gathered from all directions, causing this place to seem to have turned into a sea of spirit chi. Almost at this instant, outside the room, Pu Shi, Ji Yuanshan, and the others were all shocked. "What a powerful spirit chi wave!" Gu Jinjin exclaimed. Pu Shi nodded, and his eyes flickered as he said, "It seems that the young man has successfully inscribed the rune needed to treat Miss Ji. He has activated the spirit-gathering rune now." At the side, Ji Yuanshan clenched his fists tightly and stared at the room. "Don't worry, Great General. Miss Ji will be fine," Pu Shi consoled. In the room, rich spirit chi waves gathered around the young girl. As the 2 spirit-gathering rune scrolls were activated together, the spirit chi of heaven and earth was more than 2 times stronger than when Lin Tian cultivated with the spirit-gathering rune back then. Looking at this scene, Lin Tian nodded to himself. With such rich spirit chi, it shouldn't be a problem to treat her injuries. Lin Tian muttered to himself. He lifted his right hand and slowly pressed it on the young girl's abdomen. Following his thoughts, the Swallow Rain rune imprinted on the young girl's delicate body instantly emitted spots of light. "Activate!" As Lin Tian's words fell, the spirit chi of heaven and earth gathered by the spirit-gathering rune in the surroundings trembled together. They seemed to be attracted by something and gushed toward the young girl's abdomen happily like little fairies. After that, under Lin Tian's intentional guidance, they flowed into the young girl's wound docilely. One could see that the wound on the young girl's abdomen was starting to change slowly. The wound was gradually healing. As the wound gradually healed and the rich spirit chi entered the young girl's body, the unconscious young girl let out a soft moan. Hearing such a seductive voice, Lin Tian trembled again. How torturous! After cursing silently, Lin Tian simply closed his eyes. Although the Swallow Rain rune could automatically guide the spirit chi of heaven and earth into the young girl's body, the young girl's injuries were too severe and she was already on the brink of death. Therefore, Lin Tian had no choice but to personally use his quintessential essence to control the influx of spirit chi while he was carving the Swallow Rain rune. He was afraid that if too much spirit chi was forcefully injected, it would hurt the weak young girl's nerves. As such, this was another process of depleting his quintessential essence. Gradually, Lin Tian's essence, energy, and spirit were depleted more and more seriously, almost reaching the bottom. On the bed, rich spirit chi of heaven and earth surged and slowly flowed into the young girl's abdomen, causing the wound on her abdomen to heal rapidly. After another few dozen breaths, the young girl's eyelids trembled slightly, as if 2 mountains that had been pressing down on the world for countless years were trembling. The young girl opened her eyes tiredly. Her gaze was very dazed. At this moment, a delicate and pretty face was reflected in her eyes. This face was very clean. This face seemed to be a little pale. The young girl's lips moved as if she wanted to speak and struggled to stand up. Unfortunately, her eyelids became heavy again at this moment, and the face in her vision slowly disappeared. The world once again fell into darkness. Time once again passed, minute by minute, second by second. 15 minutes. 15 minutes later, Lin Tian opened his eyes and looked at the young girl on the bed. At this time, Although the young girl's complexion was still not very rosy, it was much, much better than when Ji Yuanshan had carried her in. Looking down, the veins on the young girl's abdomen had already dissipated, and the originally somewhat sinister wound had completely healed. "It's done," Lin Tian said to himself. Wiping the sweat from his forehead, Lin Tian stood up and carefully dressed the young girl. Looking at the young girl's face again, Lin Tian couldn't help but sigh in admiration. She could be considered a favored child of the heavens. With such a face at the age of 16, in a few years, when she grew up a little, perhaps her beauty would shock the world. Shaking his head, Lin Tian walked to the side and put on his black robes again. "It's done. Come in," he softly said. His voice wasn't very loud, but because the people outside the room had been paying attention to the movements in the room, the moment his voice fell, everyone heard it. With a creak, Ji Yuanshan was the first to push open the door and enter. Quickly walking to the bedside, looking at the young girl on the bed and feeling the young girl's even and steady breathing, Ji Yuanshan's calm face revealed some excitement. "This is really divine skill." Pushi and Guzheng couldn't help but sigh. The young girl who was originally seriously injured and on the verge of death, at this moment, in just 2 hours, her injuries had completely healed. Seeing that the young girl was fine, Ji Yuanshan turned around and came to Lin Tian, who was covered in his black robes again. His expression became incomparably solemn and respectful, and he actually bowed again. "Thank you, little brother." At this moment, a cold snort sounded, and the well-dressed young man stared at Lin Tian with an unfriendly expression, saying, "Just now in the room, did you do anything improper to little you?" Under the black robes, Lin Tian's eyes suddenly became cold. But then, the corners of his mouth revealed an evil smile, as if he knew that the well-dressed young man was interested in the young girl. He transmitted his voice, saying, "Of course, she is now mine." "You!" The well-dressed young man suddenly became furious, and his cheeks were distorted. "I'll kill you!" The well-dressed young man roared, pulled out his long sword, and slashed at Lin Tian. "Presumptuous bastard!" Pushi and Guzheng obviously didn't expect this scene, and their faces became angry, and at the same time stepped forward to stop him. However, someone was faster than them. Ji Yuanshan was in front of Lin Tian, and grabbed the long sword that the well-dressed young man was slashing at Lin Tian. The sharp blade immediately cut the skin of his palm, and blood flowed down the sword. "General," the well-dressed young man's expression changed. Ji Yuanshan released the long sword, his face cold. "Get out!" "But, get out!" With Ji Yuanshan's cold shout, the well-dressed young man suddenly trembled. Looking at Lin Tianyi insidiously and unwillingly, the well-dressed young man flicked his sleeves and left with anger. Until the well-dressed young man walked away, Ji Yuanshan looked at Lin Tian again. "Little brother, I'm really sorry." Ji Yuanshan slightly lowered his head, as if he was admitting guilt. "Old general, don't worry, this is not your fault." Lin Tiandao, the empire's first general, actually bowed his head to him, a 16-year-old boy, several times. This attitude in itself explained a lot of things. Lin Tian still had a good impression of this kind of person with great tolerance. Although he is not this old man's subordinate, since he is with me now, then it is this old man's fault. Ji Yuanshan shook his head, and then said seriously, "Little brother, if you have any request, please don't hesitate to mention it. As long as I, Ji Yuanshan, can do it, I will not refuse in the slightest." Under the black robe, Lin Tian was somewhat helpless. "Old general, you have guarded the border for dozens of years, protecting the safety of thousands of people in Beiyin. In front of such a righteous cause, how can this junior ask for a reward? I will be despised," Lin Tian said. In the room, Pushi and Guzheng looked at each other, a strange light flashing in their eyes. Ji Yuanshan looked at Lin Tian, who was shrouded in a black robe, and fell silent for a moment. "This old man is 86 years old this year. My children have all died in battle, and I only have little you as my granddaughter left. To this old man, little you is as important as the empire's people." Ji Yuanshan looked at the girl on the bed, and then looked at Lin Tian, Although little brother is benevolent and righteous, kindness is kindness, and there should be a return. Saying this, Ji Yuanshan took out a token. This old man has just returned from the battlefield and did not bring any money with me. I hope little brother will accept this token for the time being. The token was only the size of a palm, and it was pure gold. There was a general character engraved on it, and it was majestic. Chapter 37. The golden token was very small, only the size of a palm, but it gave people an extremely majestic feeling. Looking at this golden token, Pushi and Guzheng couldn't help but gasp. They looked at each other for a moment. General's deputy command? Lin Tianwei was suspicious. He seemed to have thought of something, but he wasn't sure. Pushi calmed his breath and explained, the general's deputy command is a battle command that matches the general's command. It's usually not used. For the imperial army, seeing this command is equivalent to seeing the great general. Do you understand what I mean? Under the black robe, Lin Tianyi was startled. In that case, wouldn't this small token be equivalent to an imperial sword type of existence? Seeing Lin Tian's silence, Guzheng thought Lin Tian didn't understand and said, to be more realistic with this token, the city lord of Fengjian City will have to salute you. You can even mobilize a large-scale imperial army. Lin Tian had already guessed it, but now it was even clearer. This thing seemed to be too heavy, right? Somewhat helpless, Lin Tian smiled bitterly and said, Old General, giving this thing to this junior, aren't you afraid that this junior will use this token to act recklessly? Hearing this, Ji Yuanshan was stunned at first, then he laughed heartily. This old man has been on the battlefield for dozens of years. Not to mention other things, this old man still has some confidence in judging people. Little brother is definitely not that kind of villain. Ji Yuanshan said. On the side, Pushi and Guzheng nodded. Lin Tian was helpless, but he somewhat admired this old general. Not only was he righteous, but he was also heroic. Putting the golden token into Lin Tian's hand, Ji Yuanshan said, Little brother, accept it for the time being. If you have any concerns, you can return it to this old man when you enter the imperial city in the future. Under the black robe, Lin Tian laughed bitterly. Since it had already come to this, it would be slightly rude if he didn't accept it. I am indebted to the old general's trust. If I have the opportunity to enter the imperial city in the future, I will definitely visit your mansion. Lin Tian said. Ji Yuanshan laughed loudly and said, That day will definitely come. This old man believes that Fengjian City is far from being able to accommodate you. Speaking until here, Ji Yuanshan turned around and carefully picked up the young girl from the bed. He then looked at Pushi and Guzheng and solemnly said, The two of you, thank you for today. You're too kind, great general. Pushi and Guzheng said. The young girl's injuries had completely stabilized, so Ji Yuanshan didn't stay any longer. Lin Tian and the other two escorted Ji Yuanshan all the way to the entrance of the guild. The three of you please stop. Ji Yuanshan thanks you again. Ji Yuanshan said seriously. Pushi and Guzheng nodded. They were not unreasonable. Safe journey, great general. The two said. Ji Yuanshan nodded with a smile and turned to leave. After walking a few steps, he stopped. Turning around and looking at Lin Tian, Ji Yuanshan said, Speaking of which, from little brother's voice, you should be around the same age as Xiaoyu. In the future, if fate brings you two together, forget it. Let nature take its course. Nodding at Lin Tian, Ji Yuanshan turned around and strode away. Lin Tian was a little dazed. Thinking back to Ji Yuanshan's words, he felt a little strange. Pushi teased, Little brother, you're in luck now. It seems that the great general wants to betroth his granddaughter to you. Hey, that little girl is the #1 pride of the imperial city. Not bad, not bad. This old man thinks that you two are quite compatible. Well, although I haven't seen what you look like, but thinking about it, since your control of formations is so strong, you shouldn't be too ugly. Guzheng said. Lin Tian. This old man's words are quite interesting. Shaking his head, he was about to call Pushi to leave together. Suddenly, a wave of dizziness hit his mind. and his whole person suddenly staggered. Pushi was slightly surprised and supported Lin Tian from behind. "Little brother, what's wrong?" Lin Tian felt his head was getting dizzier and dizzier. Thinking about it, he knew that it should be because the soul force and true inner force consumption were more serious. At this moment, there were sequelae. "A little tired, maybe," he said weakly. Pushi and Guzheng were stunned, then immediately understood. "Then that's it. Don't go for the time being. This old man will ask Xiao Fei to arrange another room. Little brother, rest for the night," Guzheng said. Pushi nodded. "That's a good idea." Lin Tian thought about it. It shouldn't be a problem to not return to the martial house for the night. Before, he had told Su Shu that if he went back late, he would ask her to accompany Lin Shi. As for Su Shu, he still trusted her. Thinking of this, he didn't refuse and said, "Then I'll have to trouble Elder Gu." He was really dizzy now, and it was quite difficult for him to walk. "No problem, it's my duty." Guzheng waved his hand. Immediately, Guzheng and Pushi together helped Lin Tian to a small room behind the guild. "Little brother, rest well. This old man will go back first," Pushi said. Lying on the bed, Lin Tian nodded and said, "Elder Pushi, take care." Pushi nodded and walked out with Guzheng. When they walked out of the door, Guzheng said, "This old man's room is next door. If little brother needs anything, just call me." "Thank you, Elder Gu." Lin Tian on Dao. After really understanding, he found that this old man was really a very good person. With a creak, Guzheng closed the door, and the footsteps gradually went away. Lin Tian exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. These days, he was really tired, and the rest time was obviously reduced a lot. Shaking his head, Lin Tian didn't take off his black robe. He closed his eyes and soon fell asleep. Guzheng sent Pushi to the door and then returned to his room. The waitress Xiao Fei was politely greeting people in and out of the guild. From the looks of it, nothing much had changed. The only thing that had changed was that on this day, a piece of shocking news had spread throughout the guild. Fengjian City had given birth to a genius array manipulator. This genius was only 16 years old, yet he had already reached the standard of a Tier 3 array manipulator. Even Elder Guzheng and Pu Shi of the Trading Pavilion were ashamed of their inferiority. This piece of news was undoubtedly shocking, and it stunned everyone. A 16-year-old array controller at the 3rd stage? How is that possible? It's true. I saw it with my own eyes. But that person was covered by a black cloak, so I couldn't see his face. But from his voice, he should be around 16 years old. I also saw it. At that time, the Empire's general seemed to have received a favor from that person. What? Empire's general? That old General G? Of course. Why is that old general in Fengjian City? Who knows? But this kind of thing really did happen. A 16-year-old array controller at the 3rd stage. There is such a monster. As soon as this news came out, almost all the streets and alleys of Fengjian City were discussing this matter. A 16-year-old mysterious genius, a 3rd stage array controller, and a favor to the Empire's general. Every piece of news was shocking. Everyone knew that the requirements to become an array controller were very harsh. It was 1,000 times more difficult than martial arts. Most array controllers were at least 27 or 28 years old, and they were only at the 1st stage. But now, there was a 16-year-old 3rd stage array controller in Fengjian City. This was simply too shocking. How is that possible? Could it be that he started learning array controller when he was in his mother's womb? What if the teacher behind this is a top-tier array controller? This, no matter what, it's terrifying. There's actually such a monstrous existence. The heavens are really everyone in Fengjian City sighed. Lin Tian naturally didn't know about this. He was sleeping soundly, and he didn't even hear Guzheng calling him to eat. Fortunately, Guzheng didn't get a reply after a few calls, so he left and didn't disturb him. In the blink of an eye, the night passed. Early in the morning, Lin Tian woke up and walked out of his room after breathing in and out while facing the sun. "You're awake?" He bumped into Guzheng, and Guzheng greeted Lin Tian with a smile. I've troubled Elder Gu yesterday." Lin Tian smiled. "What are you thanking me for? You're welcome. Treat this guild as your own home and come here often." Guzheng shook his head and said, "All right, Xiao Fei has already prepared breakfast, have some." Lin Tian nodded, "Okay." The breakfast in Fengjin City's Array Controller Guild was relatively simple: porridge, vegetables, and steamed buns. It didn't match the status of an array controller. However, this made Lin Tian have a better impression of this guild. After breakfast, he greeted Guzheng and the waitress, Xiao Fei, and walked out. "I didn't go back the whole night. Lin, she must be worried," Lin Tian muttered to himself. Thinking of this, his footsteps quickened. Soon he was far away from the Array Controller Guild. He couldn't even see the shadow of the guild anymore. At this time, Lin Tian's footsteps suddenly stopped. He felt several cold gazes locking onto him from behind. Tilting his head slightly, Lin Tian saw 3 black-robed, middle-aged men 5 zhang away. They were following him at a leisurely pace. Obviously, they didn't have good intentions. This caused Lin Tian to frown under the black robe. Without stopping, Lin Tianyi continued to walk forward while trying to guess who the people behind him were. Currently, his enemies were the Shao family, Mo family, and Zhou Hao. However, he was currently shrouded in a black cloak. These 3 shouldn't be able to see through his disguise. Thus, it could only be someone he made enemies with when he was wearing the black robe. Suddenly, a figure appeared in Lin Tian's mind: the luxuriously dressed young man who was with the old family army. Recalling the expression of the luxuriously dressed young man when he left, Lin Tian was even more certain of his guess. The people behind him were definitely related to that luxuriously dressed young man. Perhaps I can get rid of these people if I return to the Nine-Yang martial house. However, it will be detrimental to my future plans. Moreover, that young man must have a high status to be able to follow old General Ji. Perhaps the people behind him can enter the Nine-Yang martial house. At that time, the situation will become even worse. As his thoughts raced, Lin Tian came up with an idea and immediately walked out of the city. The 3 black-robed, middle-aged men had strange expressions on their faces, but they didn't care. They followed closely behind Lin Tian. An hour later, Lin Tian walked out of Fengjin City and arrived at a deserted area. "Come out." Chapter 38. 3 middle-aged men in black walked out from behind a giant tree and looked at Lin Tian coldly. They were shrouded in a bloody aura. It was obvious that they had experienced real battles, and their hands were stained with blood. "You deliberately led us out of the city. Should I say that you're arrogant or stupid?" One of the men in black mocked. Under the black robe, Lin Tian smiled disdainfully. "Lung Yidong asked you to come," he said calmly. When he was in the Array Manipulator Guild, he remembered that Ji Yuanshan called the young man's full name, Lung Yitong. One of the 3 middle-aged men snorted. "Young Master Lung's name is not something you can call. It's really him." Under the black robe, Lin Tian Lung smiled. The 3 middle-aged men in black were named Li Lin, Rin Shi, and Wan Xing. At this moment, Li Lin stepped forward and looked at Lin Tian indifferently. "Young Master Lung is benevolent and will give you a chance to live. Cripple your own legs and cultivation base and dig out your own eyes. Do it yourself and don't make us do it. When we do, you can only die." Hearing this, Lin Tian couldn't help but laugh. "According to you, shouldn't I thank him?" Lin Tian smiled. Li Lin said calmly, "It's good that you understand. Cripple my own legs and cultivation base and dig out my own eyes. He's prepared to let me live in humiliation, right?" Lin Tian said sarcastically. The 3 men in black suddenly froze. They didn't expect this person's intuition to be so accurate. Rin Shi said coldly, "It's not good to be too smart. Letting you live is already a kind of kindness. Don't be ungrateful." Wan Xing snorted. "Is that so?" Shrouded in the black robe, Lin Tian stepped forward calmly and said calmly, "Then I'll give you a chance. Cripple your own legs and cultivation base, and dig out your own eyes. I won't kill you. This is also a kind of kindness." Hearing this, the 3 men's faces turned cold. "You're courting death," Li Lin said coldly. Rin Shi said, "Don't talk nonsense. Kill him." This person wasn't just talking. As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed towards Lin Tian. His speed was extremely fast, and an extremely powerful aura erupted from his body as he slammed his palm towards Lin Tian. Seventh layer of body refinement. Under the black robe, Lin Tian's heart skipped a beat, but he didn't care. He didn't dodge, and instead met the attack with a punch. Fist and palm collided. With a bang, both of them were pushed back. Rinshi, what are you doing? Li Lin and Wan Xing frowned. The three of them were at the seventh layer of the body refinement realm. Rinshi had even practiced the middle-level body refinement realm martial skill, the mountain-shattering palm. With a single palm strike, it had the strength of several thousand genes. Within the same level, there were few who could withstand it, but now it was actually blocked by a sixth-layer body refinement realm martial artist. Rinshi's face darkened. He stared at Lin Tian and said, "This kid is a little strange." The two fists collided. At this moment, Rinshi felt that his palm was a little numb. Looking at the three of them again, Lin Tian said indifferently, "According to your movements and aura, you should be the Empire's soldiers. In the past 2 days of the Imperial Army's people who passed through Fengjian City, I only know one group. Then, you should be old General Ji's subordinates. Why would you listen to Lung Yitong?" Hearing this, the three of them were shocked. Smart enough, but smart people don't usually live long. The three of them coldly said. Lin Tian shrugged and said, "Since I don't have long to live before I die, I really want to know why all of you listen to Lung Yitong since you are from the Imperial City." Li Lin snorted. Rinshi said, "So what if you were a soldier? As long as you are on good terms with young Master Lung, you will have a bright future. Compared to that, a soldier is meaningless. Too much nonsense. Don't forget our purpose, kill him." Wan Xing frowned. "Okay, I will end him," Li Lin said, taking a step forward. His whole body was like a long blade unsheathed, pressing towards Lin Tian. Under the black robe, Lin Tian smiled indifferently, still using an iron fist to meet Rinshi's palm blade. With a bang, it collided with Rinshi's palm blade, causing the opponent to stagger back a few steps. Li Lin was shocked. They could feel that Lin Tian's cultivation was at the 6th level of the body refinement realm. He was obviously one level lower than them, but his physical strength was stronger than theirs. Could it be natural brute force? Wan Xing said, "In this world, some people were born with incomparably strong physiques and astonishing strength. These people were called natural brute force. However, those with natural brute force generally had poor martial arts talent. The best of them would not exceed 3 stars talent. The more these people reached the later stages, the more difficult it would be to cultivate. So that's how it is?" Rinshi snorted. "It's just brute force." With a bang, Rinshi's body exploded with an even stronger aura, causing a hurricane to roll up. At this moment, Rinshi no longer used pure physical strength to attack, but displayed a powerful martial skill. "Mountain-breaking palm die!" Rinshi shouted coldly. Rinshi took a step forward. His clenched right fist seemed to have turned into a huge mountain. The power was terrifying. Under the black robe, Lin Tianling smiled, his body slowly squatting down. His right hand reached back, reaching under the black robe, grasping the hilt of the gorgeous long sword hidden under the black robe. As Rinshi got closer, Lin Tian finally moved, rushing out like a bolt of lightning. Xiao! Like a flash of laser, he and Rinshi passed by each other. Silence, extreme silence. Heaven and earth seemed to have become dead silent at this moment. At this moment, even Li Lin and Wan Xing's expression was slightly sluggish, suddenly becoming very quiet. Drip! A faint sound was heard, and drops of blood floated down. Then, Rinshi fell straight to the ground. There was a thin line of blood on his neck. His throat had been cut open, and his eyes were staring at the sky. He died with his eyes open. Rinshi, Li Lin, and Wan Xing's expression changed greatly. Li Lin looked at Lin Tian. "What did you do?" Just now, they only saw Lin Tian and Rinshi pass by each other. They didn't see Lin Tian make a move. They only felt that Lin Tian's speed was very fast, but they didn't expect that this one pass would take Rinshi's life. "What did I do? Can't you see?" Lin Tian said indifferently, "Just killing. Just killing." For words, his voice was very calm. This made Li Lin and Wan Xing, who had experienced many battles and killings, couldn't help but tremble. Together, kill him, kill, Li Lin and Wan Xing said in a low voice. Both of them moved at the same time. Two tyrannical waves of true essence suddenly spread out. Breaking blade hand, rock splitting leg. Both of them shouted in unison. At this moment, both of them didn't underestimate Lin Tian anymore. They used almost all of their strength, attacking with mid-level body refining level martial arts. Under the black robe, Lin Tian smiled indifferently, floating back. Want to escape? Don't even think about it, Li Lin said coldly. Escape? Lin Tian was disdainful. His body floated back. While retreating, his right hand reached into the black robe and pulled out a gorgeous long sword. Staring at the two opposite, his eyes were cold, his right hand moved, and the long sword in his hand slowly slashed out. Shocking wind sword. Kung! As the words shocking wind sword fell, suddenly, an ear-piercing sword sound rang out. The whole sky was filled with silver sword light, forming an immortal sword curtain, extremely terrifying. This is... Wan Xing's expression changed. Li Lin's pupils shrank. Damn it, retreat. Both of them had experienced many battles at this moment. They truly felt the danger. You still want to retreat at this time? Too late. Lin Tianling smiled. As his voice floated in the air, in the sky, the dense sword shadows fell together. Wan Xing at the front bore the brunt, and in the first moment, dozens of bloody holes were pierced by the sword shadows, dying on the spot. On the other side, although Li Lin luckily survived, he also lost the ability to resist and could only barely move his feet. Lin Tian paused for a moment, then walked towards Li Lin. What are you doing? Li Lin's expression changed. At this moment, his eyes were filled with fear. Lin Tian was disdainful, and he lifted his leg, stomping hard on Li Lin's chest, causing Li Lin to scream immediately. What is Lung Yidong's identity? Lin Tian asked. Li Lin's heart trembled, and he wanted to say, I don't know, but when he met Lin Tianling's indifferent eyes, he could not help but feel more afraid, and he almost trembled as he said, If I tell you, will you let me go? Of course, I will consider it. Lin Tiandao. Swear. I swear. Lin Tianan said indifferently. Li Lin swallowed a mouthful of saliva, then said in a trembling voice, There are 3 strongest families in the imperial city. They're the Duan family, the Lung family, and the Jiang family. Young Master Lung. Young Master Lung is the young master of this generation of the Lung family. How strong is the Lung family? Lin Tian asked. Very, very strong. Li Lin trembled and said, It is said that there is a strong person in the sea of consciousness realm in charge. Hearing this, Lin Tian's heart trembled. One of the 3 families in the imperial city, the young master of the Lung family. No wonder he can follow the old general. Lin Tian narrowed his eyes. He was really being targeted by an incredible person. Looking at Li Lin again, he smiled faintly and said, Thank you for the information. Li Lin's heart relaxed, and then, in the next second, his expression changed. He saw Lin Tian slowly raise the long sword in his hand. What are you doing? You said you would let me go. Li Lin shouted in horror. Did I say that? Lin Tian's voice was calm. I just said I would consider it. You. Puff. The long sword fell, and with a flash of blood, Li Lin's head flew out diagonally. Glancing indifferently at the 3 corpses, Lin Tian turned and left. When he returned to the residence of the martial house, the sun was just in the sky. Lin Tian came to Lin Shi's room and gently pushed the door open, wanted to see if the little girl slept well. With a creak, the door was pushed open. Suddenly, Lin Tian's face froze. In the room, a girl was holding Lin Shi. Her slender legs were exposed to the air, suffused with a faint luster. Perhaps because she didn't sleep well, the skin of the girl's chest was also exposed. Half of her snow-white skin could be vaguely seen. The corner of the girl's mouth hung a sparkling line of saliva, which looked very attractive. Isn't it Sushu? This, Lin Tian blushed with shame. Staring at this scene, he was a little stunned. At this moment, unfortunately, Sushu turned her body and slowly opened her eyes. Looking out of the door, Sushu's confused eyes gradually widened. She was completely dumbfounded. In an instant, a man and a woman staring at each other. After 3 breaths, a scream pierced through the sky like thunder. Chapter 39. In Lin Tian's residence, Sushu's cheeks were red as she stared at Lin Tian. This is an accident, a misunderstanding. Lin Tian was slightly embarrassed. How could he have known that Sushu would accompany Lin Shi all night, and that her sleeping posture would be so improper? Accident? Misunderstanding? Sushu clenched her teeth. Her eyes were spitting fire, as if she wanted to eat Lin Tian. Lin Tian. At this time, keeping silent was the best choice. For a moment, the atmosphere in the room became even more awkward. After an unknown amount of time, Sushu finally calmed down, but she still stared at Lin Tian with her big eyes. Why didn't you come back last night? Where did you fool around? Lin Tian, why was this question so awkward? Oh, I was practicing martial arts at Greenwind Ridge. Lin Tian said, you need to practice martial arts for an entire night? Aren't you worried about Lin Shi? Sushu was a little skeptical. I was too focused on practicing and forgot the time. Lin Tian's face didn't turn red, and his heart didn't skip a beat. He took the opportunity to flatter her a little and said, besides, there's a good and beautiful girl like you here. With you here, I'm not worried at all. I believe that you will definitely come to accompany Xiaoxi and take good care of her. Lin Tianyi had a serious expression on his face. Sushu's cheeks reddened, and she coughed twice. Well, your intuition is quite accurate, not bad. It's okay. Lin Tian smiled. It seemed that Sushu's mood was finally a little better. With a snort, Sushu stared at Lin Tian. Her expression suddenly became serious and said, right, you should hurry and prepare. In 2 days, the Martial House will organize a ranking trial for the Outer House disciples. The trial field will be in Greenwind Ridge. Ranking trial? Lin Tianyi was stunned. He had never heard of this before. You've been in the Martial House for a month now. The Martial House is divided into the Outer House and the Inner House. You should already know this. Then, every year, after a new disciple enters the Martial House, the Martial House will hold a ranking trial for the Outer Palace disciples at an appropriate time. The top 30 disciples will be rewarded, and this is also to encourage the disciples to cultivate. Sushu explained. Lin Tian asked, what is the content of the trial? A duel between disciples? No. Sushu shook her head and said, aren't there many demonic beasts in the Greenwind Ridge? Normally, demonic beasts would have beast cores in their bodies. The content of the trial is very simple. You just have to kill the demonic beasts and collect their beast cores. In the end, according to the number and grade of the beast cores obtained by each disciple, a comprehensive score will be given. The higher the score, the higher the rank. I see. That's a pretty simple rule. Lin Tian nodded. After thinking for a while, he frowned and said, the demonic beasts in the Greenwind Ridge should be very fierce. Isn't the Martial House worried that the disciples will be killed by the demonic beasts? Sushu couldn't help but roll her eyes at Lin Tian's question. Normally, the disciples will often go to the Greenwind Ridge to train themselves. If the Martial House is worried that the disciples will be killed by the demonic beasts, then wouldn't they be the parents of the disciples? This is the Martial House. The Martial House only prohibits disciples from killing each other. If someone is killed by a demonic beast in the Greenwind Ridge, it only proves that the person is very weak. Sushu said. Lin Tian nodded. Although it sounded a little cruel, it was very reasonable. Are you going to participate? Lin Tian asked Sushu. Sushu rolled her eyes. Of course I'm going to participate. Otherwise, Old Man Mu will say that I'm a disappointment. Lin Tian suddenly blushed with shame. This girl kept calling him Old Man Mu. She wasn't polite at all. Can we form a team? How about we go together? He said. Sushu blinked and suddenly giggled. She stood on her tiptoes and patted Lin Tian's shoulder. With a face of assurance, she said, of course there's no problem. Don't worry, Big Sister will protect you. We're the same age. Is that so? Then, I'll protect you. Lin Tian. He basically knew about the trial. After a pause, he suddenly thought of a person and said, "That's right. The Outer Palace is a ranking trial every year." That Zhou Hao. What rank is he in the Outer Palace? Enemies, it's better to ask. Staring at Lin Tian, Su Shu was a little surprised. You don't know? I don't know. Lin Tian shook his head. After thinking for a bit, he added, I've been too busy recently, so I didn't ask. This time it was Su Shu's turn to be speechless. Zhou Hao, the son of Supervisor Feng, 18 years old, 9th layer of body refinement, Outer Palace, first. Su Shu said. Lin Tian nodded. Oh. Su Shu stared at Lin Tian. What? You're not worried at all? Worried about what? First in the Outer Palace, 9th layer of body refinement. 2 months later, you'll have to fight with him, and it's a life and death battle. Su Shu was speechless. This guy didn't have a trace of nervousness? Lin Tian rolled his eyes. If worrying is useful, why would I work hard to cultivate? That's true, but you're too relaxed. Su Shu was speechless. Relaxing your mind, cultivation will be faster. Lin Tian said with a smile. Is that so? Su Shu curled her lips and said with a little ridicule. You've relaxed for a month. May I ask what level your cultivation has reached? What level are your Shadow Fire Fist and Shocking Wind Sword Art? Lin Tian couldn't help but smile. This girl still wanted to mock him. 6th layer of body refinement, Shadow Fire Fist, Shocking Wind Sword Art, he said with a faint smile. Hearing this, Su Shu suddenly widened her eyes. What? Originally, Su Shu wanted to make fun of Lin Tian, but she didn't expect to hear such words from Lin Tian's mouth. 6th layer of body refinement, Shadow Fire Fist, Shocking Wind Sword Art. What does this mean? Forget about Shadow Fire Fist. 1 month to go from the 5th layer of body refinement to the 6th layer of body refinement. This was barely understandable. But even the Shocking Wind Sword Art was cultivated to the Shocking Wind Sword Art to the Shocking Wind Sword Art. One had to know that this sword art had never been cultivated to the peak level. Even her master Mu Qing couldn't do it, but Lin Tian actually cultivated to the Shocking Wind Sword Art to the Shocking Wind Sword Art in a month? Was a 9-star talent really so monstrous? Don't lie to me. Su Shu stared at Lin Tian. Do you need me to display my sword intent? Or do you want me to display my cultivation? Lin Tian asked. Yes. Su Shu nodded, not willing to believe it. Lin Tian was speechless. Was he so untrustworthy? At that moment, he didn't hesitate. He first displayed his cultivation, then displayed the sword intent of the 3rd sword of the Shocking Wind Sword Art. Su Shu opened her mouth wide. Mu Qing only cultivated the 2nd sword of the Shocking Wind Sword Art. At this moment, the 3rd sword that Lin Tian displayed, in terms of sword intent, was obviously stronger than the 2nd sword that Mu Qing displayed. It was obviously the 3rd sword of the Shocking Wind Sword Art. As for cultivation, she was slightly higher than Lin Tian. Naturally, she could sense that it was indeed the 6th layer of body refinement. How about it? Do you believe me now? Lin Tian spread his hands. Su Shu stared at Lin Tian, gritting her teeth. You pervert? Just as the word pervert was about to leave her mouth, she suddenly remembered what happened before. Su Shu's cheeks turned red, and she changed her words. You monster! If a person isn't a monster, it's a waste of youth. Lin Tian laughed. Hearing this laughter, Su Shu was annoyed. She kicked Lin Tian's leg and ran away. 2 days later, come to the stone door that leads to Greenwind Ridge. An angry voice drifted over from afar. Lin Tian smiled and shook his head. Outer Palace ranking trial? Oh, there's still 2 days. I can prepare, he muttered to himself. After resting for a while, Lin Tian came to the top pavilion of his residence. He took out the materials that he bought earlier and prepared to inscribe some Shocking Wind Sword Art's martial fusion pattern scrolls. After all, it was the Outer Palace ranking trial. Whether it was for the sake of results or his own safety, it wasn't a bad thing to make more preparations. In the blink of an eye, 2 days passed. On this day, there were close to 300 people standing in front of the stone door that led to Greenwind Ridge. These people were the Outer Palace disciples of the 9 Yang martial house. They were going to Greenwind Ridge together to complete the 9 Yang Martial House's Outer Palace ranking trial. The duration was 7 days. I wonder what the top 30 rewards will be. It really makes one look forward to it. What are you looking forward to? You just enter the Martial House, and you want to enter the top 30? You can at least think about it. In front of the stone door, many people were whispering. Lin Tian came here and looked around. Lin Tian, over here. Sushu waved at Lin Tian. Originally, she called Lin Tian Little Tian Tian, but after several protests and corrections by Lin Tian, she finally changed it. He's here. Lin Tian quickly ran over. Are you ready? Sushu asked. Lin Tian nodded. He was wearing a white robe with a gorgeous long sword tied to his back. In his arms, there were a few shocking wind sword arts martial fusion pattern scrolls. Not bad. You're quite spirited. Sushu smiled. Of course. Lin Tian also smiled. In front of the huge stone door stood 3 mentors from the 9 Yang Martial House. All of them were martial artists at the initial stage of the Divine Range realm. They were facing the Outer House disciples and talking about something. As for the content, it was nothing more than encouraging the battle chi. Okay, let the trial begin. Another hour passed. Finally, one of the 3 instructors yelled out. As the voice fell, the stone door leading to the Greenwind Ridge opened. A dense demonic beast aura rushed out. A group of 300 people wasn't considered majestic. Under the guidance of the 9 Yang Martial House, the 300 people passed through the stone door in an orderly manner. However, after passing through the stone door, many people suddenly roared and quickly rushed out. These people were all new disciples who had just entered the Martial House. At this moment, they were all very excited. Lin Tian and Sushu walked together calmly in a direction. Sushu, you should be very familiar with the Greenwind Ridge, right? Lin Tian asked. Sushu nodded proudly. Of course. Lin Tian immediately felt relieved and followed behind Sushu. Soon, they were 1,000 feet away from the stone door. They could no longer see the shadow of the stone door. Roar! Ayo! The roars of demonic beasts sounded. After arriving here, the demonic aura in the air was obviously much stronger. This is the territory of Class 1 demonic beasts. Most of the demonic beasts here are Class 1 demonic beasts. Of course, there are some Class 2 and even Class 3 demonic beasts that occasionally appear in this area. After going 3,000 feet into the Greenwind Ridge, it is the area of Class 2 demonic beasts. Further enter the Class 3 and Class 4 demonic beasts. With our current cultivation, we can only enter the Class 2 demonic beasts area. After entering the Class 3 demonic beasts area, it will be dangerous, Sushu said. Chapter 40. There were many demonic beasts in the Northern Flame Country. From the lowest to the highest, they could be divided into 9 levels from level 1 to 9. Among them, level 1 demonic beasts were comparable to a human cultivator of the 1st to 3rd level of the body refinement realm. Level 2 demonic beasts were comparable to a human cultivator of the 4th to 6th level of the body refinement realm. Level 3 demonic beasts were comparable to a human cultivator of the 7th to 9th level. According to legends, monsters that have surpassed level 9 can transform into human form, and their strength is extremely tyrannical. If that's the case, let's go to the level 2 area. Lin Tiandao. Sushu thought for a moment and said, that's fine too. Their cultivation has already surpassed level 3 of body refinement. Staying in the level 1 area is basically meaningless. Let's go. Sushu stood up and immediately walked forward. After walking for a short distance, a fierce roar sounded. From behind an old tree, a half-foot-tall cat-like beast slowly walked out. Its eyes were red and green, and its fur was grayish-brown. Red and green cat. Level 1 monster, level 2 monster, comparable to level 2 of body refinement. Sushu said. Just as she was introducing, the red and green cat let out a roar and rushed over with a whoosh. Lin Tian dodged, the long sword on his back unsheathed and chopped down. He is now a level 6 body refinement expert. Even a level 7 body refinement expert is not his opponent, not to mention a mere red and green cat. It was killed by him on the spot. The beast core is in the head. Dig it out? Sushu said. Lin Tian nodded, and used the long sword to cut open the head of the red and green cat. In the bloody mess, he really saw a ball the size of a baby's fist, shining faintly in the flesh. This is the beast core, Lin Tian whispered. From this ball, he felt a strong spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and there was also a strange energy fluctuation, as if it was related to the red and green cat itself. On the side, seeing his slightly puzzled expression, Sushu explained, the beast core is the essence of a demon beast. It condenses a huge amount of heaven and earth spirit chi and blood essence. Of course, this kind of thing cannot be directly used for cultivation. Why? Lin Tian was curious. How would I know? Sushu rolled her eyes and said, it's probably because the physiques of demons and humans clash. Oh, Lin Tian said. He didn't probe any further and threw the beast core into a small cloth bag that he had prepared beforehand. Let's go. Just a reminder, because we're going straight through the level 1 area to the level 2 area, we'll definitely encounter a lot of demonic beasts along the way. Sushu walked forward, and as she walked, she said, oh, senior sister will be in charge of leading the way, and you will be this senior sister's guard during this journey. Is that all right? Lin Tian, no. This girl is addicted to calling me senior sister. In the next 2 hours, the two of them quickly passed through the Grade 1 demonic beast area. Although they encountered many demonic beasts along the way, all of them died under Lin Tian's sword. At this moment, Lin Tian's small cloth bag already had more than a dozen demonic beast cores. Roar! After arriving at the 2nd grade area, the roars of the demonic beasts were even louder, and the demonic aura was even denser. Let's go, Sushu said. Lin Tian nodded, and the two of them directly entered the 2nd grade area. The Green Wind Ridge occupied a large area. Although 300 people from the Nine-Yang martial house entered, after being separated from each other, it was not easy to meet a few people. In the surroundings, there were no martial house disciples, but there were many demonic beasts. The two of them had just taken a few steps when demonic beasts appeared around them. Grade 2 demonic beast, green flame colt, comparable to the 4th layer of body refinement. Grade 2 demonic beast, spirit leap leopard, comparable to the 4th layer of body refinement. Grade 2 demonic beast, rainbow rock dog, comparable to the 5th layer of body refinement. Sushu introduced them one by one. You seem to be quite familiar with these guys. Lin Tian on Dao. Sushu was speechless. This is common knowledge. If you have time, you should take a look at the Martial House's books about demonic beasts. From Grade 1 demonic beasts to Grade 9 demonic beasts, as long as there are demonic beasts, there are detailed records in the books. There are such books? Lin Tian was astonished. Naturally, the demonic beast catalog. Later, you can go to the Bao Pavilion to take a look. That thing, anyone can look at it, Sushu said. Lin Tian nodded. At this moment, 3 demonic beasts had already pounced over. Lin Tian swung his sword, and with a pu sound, the spirit leap leopard that was the first to approach was cut in half. Immediately after, he moved his feet, and his entire body became light and agile. In a flash, he arrived beside the other 2 demonic beasts and threw out a punch and a sword at the same time. Bang! Pooh! Following 2 miserable cries, the green flame stallion and rainbow rock dog fell into a pool of blood. Lin Tian squatted down and used his long sword to cut open the heads of the 3 demonic beasts. He took out the 3 demonic beast cores and placed them in the small cloth bag. Relatively speaking, it is still a bit weak. Lin Tian on Dao. Demonic beasts that were comparable to the 4th layer of body refinement, to the current him, were not enough. At this moment, he and Sushu walked towards the depths of the 2nd grade area. Roar! Ayo! During this period of time, as the two of them advanced, the screams of demonic beasts could be heard from time to time. Soon, the two of them arrived at the edge of the 2nd grade area. If we go further, we will reach the 3rd grade area, Sushu said in a low voice. After reaching this point, she couldn't help but worry. Standing at the edge of the second grade area, Lin Tian looked towards the third grade area. He could indeed feel that the demonic chi here was much more tyrannical than the second grade area. Moreover, the ancient trees in the third grade area were much more lush. Let's go. If it is really dangerous, we can just train at the edge of the third grade area. Lin Tian On Dao said. In terms of evaluation, a single third-grade demonic beast core is equivalent to dozens of second-grade demonic beast cores. Sushu was somewhat helpless. In the end, she could only nod and follow Lin Tian into the third-grade area. The ancient trees in the third-grade area were very lush, but there were very few thorns. After the two of them walked for about 100 feet, they suddenly stopped at the same time. In front of them, behind a huge tree, a demonic wolf covered in blood red fur walked out. It was about 3 meters tall, and its eyes were oily green, giving people a bloodthirsty feeling. Third-grade demonic beast blood wolf. It is comparable to a 7th-layer body refinement cultivator. It is very sensitive to blood. It can smell blood from several hundred feet away. Sushu's eyes were serious. 7th-layer body refinement cultivator. Not bad. Let's try it out. Lin Tiandao. He had fought with a 7th-layer body refinement cultivator before, but he had never fought with a demonic beast that was comparable to a 7th-layer body refinement cultivator. Don't move! At this moment, Sushu pulled him back. What? Lin Tian was a bit puzzled. It was only comparable to a 7th-layer body refinement cultivator, so it shouldn't make Sushu so cautious. After all, Sushu was also at the 7th-layer body refinement cultivator. Sushu said, blood wolves are rare demonic beasts that live in groups. They usually move in groups, so, just as she finished speaking, Lin Tian saw that there were blood wolves in front of them. Their green eyes were especially eerie in this dim, old forest. Lin Tian roughly counted, and his heart suddenly tightened. Including the first one, there were over 30 blood wolves here. It was enough to swallow them alive. Run, Sushu said. Lin Tian nodded without hesitation. Immediately, he and Sushu ran in another direction. Over 30 blood wolves were comparable to a 7th-layer body refinement cultivator. This was not a joke. Seeing Lin Tian and Sushu run away, the 30 blood wolves suddenly revealed eerie expressions. They all roared and then started to move. As they ran, so sounds could be heard. Their speed was extremely fast. Lin Tian and Sushu ran in the old forest. Their cultivations were not weak. They were like 2 spiritual leopards. But even so, the distance between them and the blood wolves behind them was not much. Fire Fist. While running, Lin Tian turned around and threw out a punch. Suddenly, 18 fire fists appeared and smashed towards the back. He did not expect this punch to kill the blood wolves. It was obviously impossible. He only used it to interfere with the blood wolves' speed and vision. Boom! 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 The fists of fire landed on the old wood behind them, causing a rumbling explosion. There was also a burnt smell. For a moment, the movements of the 30 blood wolves were indeed hindered, and the distance between them and the two was pulled apart by a large margin. Beautiful! Sushu praised. The two ran for a distance and finally could not feel the blood wolves' aura. They safely left. In the dim, old forest, the two walked slowly and carefully. Someone is following us, Lin Tian suddenly said. Sushu frowned. She also felt it. Those who can enter the Greenwind Ridge are usually disciples of the Martial House. These people are following us. Could it be that they want to snatch the beast cores? Every year, the Nanyang Martial House would hold an outer house ranking trial. In this trial, it was not uncommon for disciples of the Martial House to snatch the beast cores. Just snatching the beast cores? Lin Tian whispered. His soul force was extremely tyrannical. Naturally, his perception was also very sharp. At this moment, he clearly felt a murderous aura. It was just snatching the beast cores. It seemed that there was no need to have a murderous aura. Follow me. He pulled Sushu and walked in another direction. Suddenly being held by Lin Tian, Sushu was stunned at first. Then, her cheeks turned red. You rascal. It was the first time in her life that the opposite sex held her hand. This made Sushu embarrassed and angry. However, she also knew the current situation and did not struggle. Soon, the path ahead became spacious and empty. After arriving here, Lin Tian stopped moving. "Come out." He turned around and coldly looked behind him. Sushu stood beside him and followed his gaze. Heh! A cold and gloomy laugh rang out. 5 people walked out from behind a few old trees one after another. Sushu's face froze. Mo Ning, Mo Zhong, Mo Gu, Mo Fei, Mo Qian. What do you want? She was Mu Qing's disciple and had been cultivating in the Nanyang martial house for more than a year. Naturally, she knew that these 5 people were outer house disciples from the previous 2 batches. Their cultivation was in the 7th level of the body refinement realm. The most important thing was that these 5 people were from the Mo clan. This made Sushu frown. She had a bad premonition. All surnamed Mo? Lin Tian suddenly narrowed his eyes. He was not an idiot. In an instant, he guessed many things. A month ago, in the 3rd round of the martial house's assessment, he killed Mo's son from the Mo clan. Now, the 5 people from the Mo clan appeared together. Obviously, they were not here to greet him. He could feel the murderous aura from them. Little brat Lin Tian, not long ago, you were just a good-for-nothing. Who would have thought that your guts would become so big? You actually dared to kill my Mo clan's disciple. Mo Ning's words were cold. He took a step forward. You don't know how to write the word death. Chapter 41. There were 5 people from the Mo clan, 4 men and 1 woman. All of them were at the 7th layer of body refinement, especially Mo Ning, who was about to enter the 8th layer of body refinement. At this moment, the 5 of them locked onto Lin Tian with indifferent killing intent in their eyes. The Mo clan was a martial arts clan. Naturally, Mo's son and MOG were not the only ones who had entered the Nanyang martial house. These 5 people had already been in the martial house for 2 years. 5 7th layer body refinement cultivators. In order to kill me, your Mo clan is really willing to spend money. Lin Tian said indifferently. Mo Ning coldly snorted. Not only my Mo clan, but the Shao clan also wants to kill you. However, you coward are really good at enduring. You have always holed up in the martial house. Otherwise, how could we let you live until today? Is that so? Then I'm really lucky. Lin Tian sneered. He had walked out of the martial house a few times, but he was always covered in a black robe. No one could recognize him. At this moment, after hearing Mo Ning's words, he couldn't help but feel lucky for his caution. The Mo clan and Shao clan had indeed placed spies outside the martial house. They were waiting for him to walk out of the martial house so that they could kill him. It's a pity that your luck has run out here, Mo Ning said indifferently. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Behind them, Mo Qian jumped onto an old tree and took out a bow and arrow. The arrow was cold and pointed directly at Lin Tian. My arrow can penetrate everything, Mo Qian said coldly. At the same time, 2 of the other 4 people took out their weapons. Seeing this scene, Sushu's expression suddenly changed. You want to kill him? Aren't you afraid of the martial house's punishment? Hearing this, the 5 people laughed disdainfully. Mo Zhong said indifferently. Greenwind Ridge is filled with demonic beasts. It is a very dangerous place. It is very common for cowards to enter the 3rd level area and be killed by demonic beasts. Sushu was moved. Obviously, she guessed Mo Zhong's intention. After killing Lin Tian, they would put all the blame on the demonic beasts. I am still here. If you dare to make a move, I will report to the martial house elders one by one. Sushu said. The 5 people looked at each other and shook their heads indifferently. Dead people can't talk, Mo Ning said indifferently. Sushu's expression changed, and she was furious. At this moment, a chuckle sounded. Lin Tian reached out and pulled Sushu behind him. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the 5 people in front of him. You should know who she is. You dare to kill someone like that. You have guts, and your heart is black. Sushu was Mu Qing's disciple and had no enmity with the Mo family. However, These people wanted to kill Sushu as well, in order to keep the news a secret. They were truly insane. Just like you, the ones who killed her were also demonic beasts, not us. Mo Ning said indifferently. Sushu was infuriated. She bared her teeth and looked as if she wanted to rush out and bite Mo Ning to death. Lin Tian stopped her. His face was still calm. You dared to attack her even after knowing her identity, and the 5 of you came together. Obviously, you were prepared. Did Mo order you to do this? You are very smart. Mo Ning clasped his hands behind his back and didn't deny it. Lin Tian narrowed his eyes. You admitted it so easily. You must think that she and I are dead, right? Do you think you can still live? Mo Ning's face was indifferent. The other 4 people sneered with sarcastic looks on their faces. The 5 of them came together. All of them were at the 7th layer of the body refinement realm. Mo Ning was about to enter the 8th layer of the body refinement realm. With this kind of fighting strength, how could they not kill a 6th layer of the body refinement realm and a 7th layer of the body refinement realm woman? Today, you must die. Mo Zhong said. Must I? Not necessarily. Lin Tian smiled evilly. It looked strange, but there was a kind of self-confidence. Such an expression naturally made Mo Ning and the other 4 people unhappy. Attack, Mo Ning said coldly. As his words fell, Mo Qian, who was on the branch behind them, sneered and attacked. With a whoosh, a silver arrow broke through the air and aimed at Lin Tian's forehead. It seemed as if it wanted to pierce through space. Be careful. Sushu's face changed. This arrow was very strong. It was a middle-level body refinement realm martial skill, the Imperial Arrow Technique. Lin Tian smiled evilly. When the arrow was 2 inches away from his forehead, he quickly reached out and grabbed the arrow. With a twist of his right hand, he threw the arrow in his hand. Whoosh! The arrow broke through the air and returned to its original path. With a puff, it pierced Mo Qian's chest and brought out a dazzling bloodlight. Ah! Mo Qian screamed and fell from the thick branch. With a bang, she fell to the ground. This arrow pierced through her heart. 1 arrow, 1 kill. Xiao Qian. Mo Gu came to Mo Qian's side and checked her breathing. Suddenly, he showed a ferocious expression. You dare to kill her? Mo Gu roared. Lin Tian smiled disdainfully and looked at Mo Gu as if he was looking at an idiot. You came here to kill me. Do you expect me to be polite to you? Those who want to kill should be prepared to be killed. He stood there with a calm and cold face. This guy, looking at Lin Tian, Sushu was a little surprised and muttered softly. He was usually a sunny and gentle person. However, when he killed someone, he did not even blink. This contrast made her feel a little uncomfortable. On the opposite side, Mo Ning and the other 3's faces darkened. This was just the beginning. However, one of the 5 of them had been killed. Let's attack together, Mo Ning said coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, he was the first to rush forward and press his palm toward Lin Tian. At the same time, Mo Gu roared and rushed forward. The other 2 charged toward Sushu. Are you okay? Lin Tian asked Sushu softly with a long sword in his hand. Sushu snorted and swung her right hand. A beautiful sword appeared in her hand. Who do you think I am? Watch me. I'll protect you. As she spoke, she actually took the lead and rushed out. Her slender sword flew and slashed towards Mo Zhong and Mo Fei. Cool. Amazing. However, I'm a man. I don't like to be protected by a woman. Lin Tiantan smiled. He tilted his head and looked at Mo Ning and Mo Gu. His face suddenly became cold. Clang! His long sword turned, and an ear-piercing sword whistle resounded in the sky. Sword of destruction. As the 4 words rang out, dense silver swords appeared in the sky. They were like crescent moons and slashed toward Mo Ning, Mo Gu, Mo Zhong, and Mo Fei at the same time. This guy, Sushu, was shocked and angry. She slashed her sword toward the 4 people. They had snatched away her opponents. Mo Ning and Mo Gu rushed toward Lin Tian. Their faces were even colder. Insolent, Mo Gu shouted angrily. He held a long sword in his hand. The sword was glowing faintly. Apparently, he had used a martial skill. He went past Mo Ning and slashed toward Lin Tian. Lin Tian smiled evilly. He squatted slightly and slashed his long sword behind him. Then he jumped out like lightning. Sort of lightning. The 4 words floated. Lin Tian and Mo Gu passed each other. With a crack, the blade in Mo Gu's hand broke. There was a thin line of blood on his neck. Drops of blood flowed out. Then his body fell down with a thump. He couldn't be more dead. Mo Gu, Mo Ning, and the other two's faces changed. It wasn't just them. Even Su Shu's expression changed. How long had it been? With the cultivation at the 6th body refinement layer, he had fought against 5 people at the 7th body refinement layer. In the blink of an eye, Lin Tian had actually killed 2 people. What kind of combat power was this? Damn it, bastard, kill him first. The 3 of them roared and stared at Lin Tian. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sound of air breaking was heard. The 3 of them exploded with an extremely tyrannical aura. They were like 3 cheetahs, crazily pouncing toward Lin Tian. A cold voice sounded. Su Shu raised the long sword in her hand. Sword light shot in all directions, blocking Mo Zhong and Mo Fei. Your opponent is me. Su Shu snorted. Bitch, get out of my way. Mo Zhong was furious. Su Shu was stunned at first. Then, her eyes were about to spit fire. You scolded me. The long sword in her hand vibrated and instantly became incomparably terrifying. It was obviously a graceful sword, but at this moment, it seemed to have turned into a thunderbolt. It was so terrifying that even Lin Tian was moved. However, after thinking about it, Lin Tian was relieved. Su Shu was Mu Qing's last disciple. It was normal for her to have this kind of strength. Mo Zhong's face changed. With a puff, the long sword in Su Shu's hand vibrated. A thunderbolt slashed out and penetrated Mo Zhong's shoulder. Suddenly, Mo Zhong let out a shrill scream. Mo Zhong! Seeing this scene, Mo Ning and Mo Fei's face changed. In the distance, Lin Tian shook his head. Although they were both at the 7th level of body refinement, Su Shu's strength was much higher than Mo Zhong's. If Su Shu had wanted to, she would have been able to kill Mo Zhong. But in the end, she had only managed to pierce through his shoulder. A little too kind, he muttered to himself. Mo Zhong clutched his shoulder. Blood flowed out, and his cheeks were twisted in pain. You dare to scold me. I'll kill you. Su Shu grimaced. Lin Tian was speechless. Since you can say such words, you should have killed him. Why did you show mercy? Mo Ning and Mo Fei protected Mo Zhong behind them. They coldly looked at Lin Tian and Su Shu. I've underestimated you. Mo Ning's face was cold. He immediately changed the topic and stared at Lin Tiandao. However, this is also good. After reporting to the martial house for killing 2 disciples, the lightest punishment would be to cripple your cultivation and expel you from the martial house. At that time, without the protection of the martial house, I want to see how you can survive. Mo Ning smiled sinisterly. His face was extremely cruel. The death of your fellow disciples didn't make you angry. Instead, you wanted to take advantage of it. You're really a scum. Lin Tian shook his head. He squinted his eyes and looked at Mo Ning. However, what did you say before? That's right. Dead people can't speak. Mo Ning and the other two's faces changed. You want to kill them all? Mo Ning coldly said. Isn't this a little strange? What do you mean by kill them all? Lin Tian's face was calm. He slowly raised the long sword in his right hand. I'm just defending myself. Clang! The sound of the sword was ear-piercing. An astonishing sword intent quickly rushed out of his body. It destroyed everything in its path. This is... Mo Ning and the other two's faces changed as they felt the sharp sword intent. On the other side, Su Shu was also moved. She instantly guessed what martial skill Lin Tian was going to use. The last move of the Shocking Wind Sword art. Shocking Wind Sword. Chapter 42. An astonishing sword will spread out and immediately shrouded the void. Then, dense sword shadows appeared, and each sword shadow turned into a long energy sword. The scene was very frightening. The last sword of the shocking wind sword art? How is it possible? Mo Ning's face changed. Mo Ning hadn't practiced the shocking wind sword art. However, he had seen the introduction of the shocking wind sword art in the treasure-changing pavilion. It was exactly the same as the scene at the moment. The last sword? Didn't you say that no one could practice it? Mo Fei was shocked. The corners of Lin Tian's mouth curled up into a smile. His entire being gave off an extremely evil feeling. Sushu, step back. Lin Tian on Dao. I don't need you to tell me that. Sushu curled her lips. In fact, when Lin Tian had displayed his sword intent, Sushu had already guessed what kind of martial technique Lin Tian was going to use. At this moment, when she saw the dense sword shadows, she immediately moved to one side. The last move of the shocking wind sword art was highly praised by her master Mu Qing. She naturally knew how terrifying this sword was. Retreat! Mo Ning shouted. He and Mo Fei pulled Mo Zhong to escape. A cold snort was heard. The dense sword shadows vibrated. I didn't ask you to retreat. Lin Tianling smiled. The long sword in his right hand slowly pressed down. Suddenly, all the sword shadows fell straight down like rain. A scream immediately rang out. Facing such a sword curtain, how could an ordinary person block it? In just an instant, Mo Zhong was pierced through by several sword shadows, nailing him to the ground. Blood flowed out as he breathed his last breath. Puff! Blood floated up. Mo Fei wasn't lucky enough to escape. His throat was pierced by a sword. He died on the spot. In the end, only Mo Ning, who was the most powerful among the three, survived. However, his body was covered with blood. He staggered back. His eyes were full of fear. So scary. No wonder no one has practiced it to the profound realm. This last sword is enough to be compared with the top-level martial technique of the body refining realm. Sushu's eyes widened, and then she was very surprised. This guy, he actually managed to cultivate this sword technique to the great accomplishment stage within a month. Is a 9-star talent really so freakish? Lin Tian withdrew his sword and swept it towards Mo Ning. You're actually still alive? Not bad. Lin Tian smiled. The long sword in his hand slightly trembled as he slowly walked towards Mo Ning. What are you doing? Mo Ning held a blade in his hand. He used the blade to block in front of his body. He retreated while staring at Lin Tian in a panic. What are we doing? Guess. Lin Tian smiled evilly. Mo Ning's complexion turned ugly. He retreated while speaking in a sinking voice. You've already killed 4 of our people. It's not too late to stop now. I can act as if nothing had happened. You don't have to report to the Marshal House. Lin Tian sneered. What nonsense are you talking about? They were all killed by demonic beasts. Mo Ning's complexion froze and suddenly became ashen. They had used these words on Lin Tian and Sushu before. But now, Lin Tian was using them on them. You want to kill me? Mo Ning stared at Lin Tian. You're right. Lin Tianin smiled. Unfortunately, there's no prize. This attitude made Mo Ning scared and angry. He stared at Lin Tian and said in a threatening manner, I advise you not to act recklessly. You won't have a good time if you dare to kill me. Uncle Mo won't let you go. The elders of the Marshal House won't let you go either. The only thing that awaits you in the end is death. I won't have a good time if I don't kill you, Lin Tian said in disdain. He held the long sword in his hand and moved towards Mo Ning at a moderate pace. Looking at Lin Tian's action, Sushu's complexion changed. She opened her mouth to say something, but in the end, she restrained herself. She didn't want Lin Tian to kill his fellow disciples. But she also knew that these people had come to kill Lin Tian. Moreover, there were 5 of them. So, she didn't have any reason to stop Lin Tian and his people. Forget it, she whispered in a low voice. Lin Tian had already arrived in front of Mo Ning. He raised the long sword in his hand, and a faint silver light flickered. Goodbye. He smiled evilly. The long sword glowed and directly pressed down. The ice-cold sword cut through the air and issued a chi-chi sound of friction. However, At this moment, Lin Tian's hand movement suddenly stopped. He suddenly turned around and looked in the direction of Su Shu. Su Shu, get out of the way, he shouted in a loud voice. Su Shu was extremely puzzled. However, at the next moment, an ice-cold aura suddenly surrounded her. She didn't know when, but behind her, a figure that resembled a malicious spirit had appeared. He was clad in a long gray robe and was like a specter from the legends, causing one's scalp to go numb involuntarily. Su Shu felt powerless in an instant. It seemed as if her real elemental energy had been frozen. Su Shu stretched out her hand, but her body suddenly became weak, and she fainted on the spot. Jia Jia. A strange sound came out from the mouth of the gray-robed figure. Its head was shaped like a human face, but it looked extremely ugly. Its eyes were red and looked very strange. Let go of me, Lin Tian roared. He temporarily gave up on Mo Ning and turned around and rushed towards Su Shu. He displayed his fastest lightning sword and attacked the malicious ghost-like figure behind Su Shu like a thunderbolt. Whoosh! The sound of breaking air resounded. Lin Tian's sword pierced the air. A gray light flashed. The malicious ghost-like figure was like a real ghost. Its speed was extremely fast. It appeared dozens of feet away in the blink of an eye. Then, it disappeared from Lin Tian's sight after a few flashes. A wisp of ice-cold aura lingered in the air and made Lin Tian feel somewhat cold. However, he was more anxious at this moment. Damn it! His face was full of coldness as he held the long sword in his hand. Su Shu had been captured by that ghost-like figure in front of him. Lin Tian didn't hesitate. He turned around and arrived in front of Mo Ning. He grabbed Mo Ning's collar and said, "What was that thing? Tell me everything you know." Mo Ning shivered. There was a trace of fear in his eyes. That was... Slap. Lin Tian slapped Mo Ning's face. His face was ice-cold. "Speak," he coldly said. He didn't give Mo Ning time to be afraid. Facing Lin Tian's incomparably cold eyes, Mo Ning subconsciously trembled. His eyes were filled with fear. Swallowing a mouthful of saliva, Mo Ning said, "That was a third-grade monster beast, red-faced ghost. It is comparable to a ninth-layer body refinement cultivator. It likes to catch prey and slowly enjoy the fear of the prey before it dies. Then it will eat it bite by bite, red-faced ghost." Lin Tian held the long sword in his hand. He spun it in the opposite direction and directly cut Mo Ning's throat. Mo Ning covered his throat with both hands. Blood flowed out from his fingers. His entire body was trembling. He didn't die immediately, but he could clearly feel his life draining away. This feeling made him incomparably afraid. Only this process was very short. After a few breaths, Mo Ning's eyes turned white. He lay on the ground without any movement. Dead. Looking at the 5 corpses on the ground, Lin Tian's face didn't have the slightest change in expression. He swept his gaze in a direction. From there, he could vaguely feel dozens of familiar monster auras rapidly approaching. He still remembered this monster aura very clearly. It was the aura of the blood wolves. They must have smelled the scent of blood here. Swish! He used the yin-yang steps and quickly left. The blood wolves would clean up the corpses of Mo Ning and the others for him. Running in the third-grade demon area, Lin Tian's face was somewhat anxious. He crazily operated the Heavenly One Soul technique. His soul power spread all around to sense the aura of the red-faced ghost. In the beginning, the reason why he was able to sense the existence of the red-faced ghost when he killed Mo Ning was because his soul power was extremely tyrannical. "I must make it in time," Lin Tian secretly said. From Mo Ning, he knew the hobby of the red-faced ghost. It liked to catch prey and slowly enjoy the fear of the prey before it died. Then it would eat it. This process usually took 1 to 2 days. Moreover, the red-faced ghost liked to capture young women the most. The red-faced ghost would admire young women for a longer time before it ate them. Lin Tian cursed in his heart. What a pervert! However, he was somewhat glad that this perverted hobby of his had given him the time to save Su Shu. The red-faced ghost often appears in the east of the third grade area. Lin Tian muttered to himself and ran even faster. He used the yin-yang steps. With each step, he flashed and ran quickly in the old forest. The heavenly one-soul technique was still operating. Lin Tian more or less remembered the aura of the red-faced ghost. It was very strong and cold. After it stayed in the air, it would take a long time for it to dissipate. In this way, it left a clue for him. According to the location of the red-faced ghost's nest provided by Mo Ning and the remaining cold aura in the air, he used the heavenly one-soul technique to sense and quickly chased after it. The Greenwind Ridge occupied a large area. Lin Tian ran quickly by relying on his instincts as he passed through this area. His entire body seemed to have transformed into a cheetah. His speed was astonishing. Sushu was his first true friend after coming to this world. She was a little mischievous and narcissistic. However, she was extremely good to him and Lin Shi. Now that Sushu had been captured by the demonic beasts, he was naturally very anxious. Swish, swish, swish. He used the yin-yang steps to the limit. He was like an afterimage shuttling through the third grade demonic beast area. He passed through the small gaps between the demonic beasts. In the blink of an eye, he had left the demonic beasts behind. Such movements and such speed. If someone were to see this, they would definitely be so shocked that their jaws would drop. While he was shuttling through the forest, Lin Tian's eyes suddenly lit up. Found it. He stopped and leaned against an old tree. He saw a black hole in front of him. A gray-robed ghost figure was disappearing into the black hole with its back facing him. It was a red-faced ghost. At the same time, he vaguely saw the corner of Sushu's clothes. In this instant, the red-faced ghost had completely disappeared into the black hole. Lin Tian took a deep breath. He held the long sword in his hand and slowly approached the black hole. The red-faced ghost was a peak third-level demonic beast that was comparable to the 9th level of the refinement realm. Compared to the current him, it was much, much stronger. In a direct confrontation, he was definitely not its opponent. The most important thing was that the red-faced ghost's perverted habits gave him enough time to save Sushu. Therefore, for now, what he needed to do the most was to be cautious. Chapter 43. The cave was very dark. Lin Tian cautiously walked to the front of the cave. He immediately felt an extremely cold aura, as if there was an ice cave in front of him. Holding the long sword in his hand, Lin Tian took a deep breath and immediately entered. Lin Tian slowly walked along the walls of the cave. The deeper he went, the colder the air became. Fortunately, Lin Tian cultivated the 4 extreme scriptures. His body was much stronger than the average person, so he could withstand this cold. Sushu probably isn't feeling well. After all, she's a girl, Lin Tian whispered. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but quicken his pace. This cave was a little winding, but there were no forks in the road. For Lin Tian, this was a good thing. After walking for a short while, a strange cackling sound came from the depths, and it was accompanied by the slightly weak cry of a woman. Lin Tian's heart tightened, and he immediately started jogging. Soon, there was some light in front of him. Lin Tian leaned against the wall and looked forward. His eyes moved slightly. At this moment, he had already reached the end of the cave. In front of him was a large nest. There were many vines growing on the walls of the nest. It looked very messy. Because of the angle, Lin Tian could only see half of the nest. However, he estimated that the nest was about 100 feet in radius. Go away! A familiar voice sounded and floated in the air. Lin Tian moved his body and followed the voice to the other side of the empty nest. He immediately saw the red-faced ghost and Sushu. At this moment, the red-faced ghost was squatting in front of Sushu. Its ugly face was 3 inches away from Sushu. It occasionally opened its mouth and spat out a disgusting smell. Get lost! Sushu shouted, but she was still very weak. Lin Tian's eyes narrowed. He recalled the scene when Sushu had fainted. Could it be that Sushu's body was paralyzed? However, after taking another look, Lin Tian couldn't help but be speechless. Sushu, this girl, was quite bold. She still dared to yell at a time like this. Didn't she know what fear was? Unparalleled heroine. Lin Tian praised inwardly. Although that was what he thought, Lin Tian didn't relax. He stared ahead while thinking about what to do next. In front of them, the red-faced ghost seemed to want to intimidate its prey. It moved its ugly face closer to Sushu, then quickly retreated. Then, it moved closer to her again. From time to time, it would breathe out a cold breath, but it did not attack. Looking at this scene, even Lin Tian couldn't help but curse in his heart. It was clearly just a demonic beast, but its habits were actually so abnormal. "Go away!" Sushu shouted, her head swaying left and right. Suddenly, her beautiful eyes widened. As her vision shifted, she saw a very familiar face. Lin. Sushu was pleasantly surprised and was about to cry out. Lin Tian was shocked. He quickly pressed his index finger to his lips, indicating that Sushu should not cry out. This cave was a little dark, but Sushu still saw Lin Tian's movements clearly. She immediately understood. She turned her cheek to the other side and cried out even more exaggeratedly. She pretended to be frightened and attracted the red-faced ghost's attention. Obviously, she also knew that the red-faced ghost was very scary. In a direct confrontation, she and Lin Tian were no match for it. Therefore, they needed to outsmart it. Jia, Jia, Jia. The red-faced ghost seemed to enjoy Sushu's frightened expression. Its ugly demonic face seemed to be a little excited. Looking at this scene, Lin Tian slowly squatted down and picked up a piece of gravel from the ground. Without circulating his true essence, he held the gravel in his hand and threw it to the other side of the empty lair. When it landed on the ground, it made a bang. The red-faced ghost obviously heard this sound and slowly retreated from Sushu's side. It moved its human-like, demonic body and floated in the direction Lin Tian threw the gravel. Jia. Arriving at the place where the gravel landed, the red-faced ghost's blood-red, demonic eyes stared at the ground. It seemed to have some doubts. Outside the lair, Lin Tian's heart skipped a beat. Now is the time. With a flash of light in his eyes, Lin Tian quickly moved. He used the yin-yang steps to the limit. In a flash, he arrived beside Sushu. He pulled Sushu up and turned to leave. The red-faced ghost was comparable to a ninth-layer body refinement realm cultivator. He did not dare to stay. Whoosh! His speed was extremely fast. Like the wind, he brought along a sound that broke through the air. In just 3 breaths, he left the lair. The red-faced ghost naturally heard this movement. It turned around and found that its prey had disappeared. It immediately let out an angry roar. Jia! With a fierce roar, the red-faced ghost was like an angry tiger. It charged straight at Lin Tian. In the pitch-black cave, because Sushu did not have any strength left, Lin Tian was able to carry Sushu in a princess carry. Like this, his speed slowed down by quite a bit. It's coming, Sushu shouted. Through the dark cave, a pair of blood-red demonic eyes were chasing behind them. It was so glaring. Lin Tian was also shocked. This red-faced ghost speed was too fast. He carried Sushu and clenched his teeth. He forcefully used the yin-yang steps to increase his speed. His body and the wind in the cave created a chi-chi sound, which shocked Sushu. Carrying a person, Lin Tian was still able to display such a fast speed. A normal 8th-layer body refinement realm cultivator would not be able to do this. Xiao! The sound of air breaking approached from behind, getting closer and closer. The red-faced ghost's angry roar was like glass rubbing against each other. It was extremely ear-piercing. In front, bright sunlight appeared. The exit of the cave could already be seen. This made Lin Tian happy. However, at this time, the red-faced ghost was already behind them. A dangerous signal appeared in Lin Tian's heart. Without time to think, Lin Tian stopped and lowered his head at an extremely fast speed. The sound of air breaking slid. Faintly, Lin Tian saw the light of a sharp blade in the dusky air above his head. It seemed to cut the air apart. With a bang, the red-faced ghost landed in front of him and Sushu, blocking the entrance of the cave. Jia! Staring at Lin Tian, the red-faced ghost's ugly demonic face seemed somewhat sinister. "It's over, it's over, it's over," Sushu shouted. Lin Tian secretly cursed his bad luck. After thinking for a while, he turned in the opposite direction and went back the way he came. He was very clear that it was obviously impossible to break through by force. The red-faced ghost let out a strange cry and chased after Lin Tian. Not long after, almost one after the other, Lin Tian carried Sushu back to the red-faced ghost's nest. The red-faced ghost also chased here. "We can only fight." Lin Tian put Sushu down. Just now, in the cave, because the space was too small, he was somewhat unable to use his full strength. In addition, he was carrying Sushu, which was a little troublesome. Therefore, he could only return here. The long sword in his hand shook, and the sword light flashed. "Sushu, if there's a chance later, leave first. Don't worry about me." Lin Tian whispered. "What are you talking about? Who do you think I am? If we leave together. If we die together." Sushu said angrily. "Die? What do you mean die? I'll let you go first. After you successfully escape, it'll be easier for me to escape alone." Lin Tian could not help but roll his eyes and said, "Speaking of which, I'm still a pure young body. Wouldn't it be a big loss if I die like this?" Sushu was stunned. Then she immediately cursed, "Dirty, shameless, stinky hooligan, shameless." Of course, she knew what a pure young body meant. It meant that he had not touched a woman yet. Lin Tian. This guy clearly looked weak, but he was quite good at cursing people. Whoosh! The sound of wind breaking through the air was heard. Lin Tian's heart skipped a beat. The red-faced ghost was coming. "Be careful. Seize the opportunity to escape," Lin Tian shouted in a low voice. The long sword in his hand turned, and the silver sword light flashed. His whole body rushed forward quickly, like a spiritual leopard. Clang! The sound of metal colliding was heard. Lin Tian's sword was blocked by something. With the weak sword light, Lin Tian saw that the red-faced ghost stretched out its right arm. Its claws were as strong as iron and completely blocked his sharp long sword. He suddenly remembered that when he first escaped out of the cave, he saw a few sharp lights. It was the red-faced ghost's claws. "It's hard to deal with," Lin Tian thought. He had used the lightning sword before, but this red-faced ghost's speed was really fast. The second sword of the shocking wind sword art, which was known to be as fast as lightning, was actually dodged. It was very scary. At this moment, his attack was blocked. He quickly retreated. The shocking wind sword rolled out, creating a sky full of sword shadows, whizzing toward the red-faced ghost. "Yeah!" The red-faced ghost roared and waved its claws quickly. It actually shattered Lin Tian's shocking wind sword. Lin Tian's heart froze. The difference in cultivation is really too big. The startling wind sword was currently his strongest martial skill, but this move had been blocked. This made him sigh. A demonic beast comparable to a ninth-layer body refinement cultivator was truly terrifying. With his current cultivation level, it was impossible for him to face it head-on. But what made Lin Tian feel a little comforted was that although the shocking wind sword was blocked, the red-faced ghost also retreated 7 or 8 steps. Obviously, the shocking wind sword was still a threat to it. Lin Tian retreated a step. With his back facing Sushu, he said in a deep voice, "Sushu, I'll use the shocking wind sword again. Take advantage of the moment when this monster is forced back. Leave as fast as you can." "I'm not leaving," Sushu angrily said. Lin Tian was a little helpless, but he was also a little moved. "All right, then think about it. See if this red-faced ghost has any weaknesses." Lin Tian on Dao. He more or less understood Sushu's personality. No matter what he said, this girl would not run away by herself. Weaknesses? Sushu stared at the red-faced ghost. Thinking for a bit, she said, "Master said before that the red-faced ghost's speed is very fast, and its claws are tough and sharp. But the throat is very weak. But the red-faced ghost is abnormal and cautious. Normally, it would use one claw to protect its throat and the other claw to fight. Pausing for a moment, Su Shu continued. If you want to kill the red-faced ghost, you have to be able to pierce its throat through the gap between its claw protecting its throat. However, this kind of thing is really too difficult. Even an expert at the peak of the 9th layer of the refinement realm can't do it. It requires both an extremely fast attack speed and an extremely sharp perception. Hearing this, Lin Tian's heart moved. Gap in the claw, throat, attack speed, perception. He narrowed his eyes. If it was like this, then maybe that move would work. Chapter 44. Lin Tian stared at the red-faced ghost opposite him. He took a deep breath, held the hilt of his sword with both hands, and stared straight ahead. Read the full text. Su Shu, back off a little, Lin Tian whispered. Su Shu was stunned, but she quickly took action and took a few big steps back. Yeah. On the opposite side, the red-faced ghost roared. Its demonic eyes were blood red, and it rushed over with a face full of hostility. Huff! Lin Tian stared straight ahead. After exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, the long sword in his hand rotated and pressed down. The wind-shocking sword was displayed again at the fastest speed. The dense sword light pressed down on the red-faced ghost from all directions. The red-faced ghost roared and waved its claws quickly. Chi! 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 A crisp sound was heard. In the blink of an eye, Lin Tian's wind-shocking sword was completely destroyed. However, Lin Tian's expression did not change. He raised his right hand, and the long sword in his hand flew out. It turned into a ray of light and pierced towards the red-faced ghost. Then, he squatted down slightly and rushed towards the red-faced ghost with his bare hands. Lin Tian, what are you doing? Come back! Su Shu's expression changed drastically. Rushing towards the red-faced ghost with his bare hands. Wasn't he courting death? Lin Tian's expression was indifferent and calm. Lightning seemed to intertwine in his eyes. He used the yin-yang steps to the limit. It was like a flickering light and passing shadow, extremely fast. Clang! A crisp sound was heard. The long sword that Lin Tian threw out first was knocked away by the red-faced ghost's claw. However, at this time, Lin Tian had already arrived in front of the red-faced ghost. At this moment, Lin Tian did not have a sword in his hand, but he resolutely slashed out. Lightning sword! He spat out 4 words from his mouth. Although he did not have a sword in his hand at this moment, it was as if a real lightning sword appeared in his right hand. It was fast and extremely powerful. The fierce and domineering sword intent caused the entire space to tremble. Whoosh! Like a flash of light, Lin Tian and the red-faced ghost passed by each other. In an instant, the surroundings were deathly silent. The red-faced ghost trembled and opened its mouth to wail. Its blood-red eyes quickly dimmed. Then, under Su Shu's widened eyes, the red-faced ghost fell to the ground with a thud. Bright red blood slowly flowed out from the gap between the claws, protecting its throat. Dead! Su Shu was shocked. Her beautiful eyes filled with disbelief. She remembered that earlier Lin Tian didn't have a sword in his hand, but he had executed the shocking wind sword formula. Furthermore, he had killed the red-faced ghost with a single slash. Lin Tian, how are you? Looking at Lin Tian, who still had his back facing her, Su Shu couldn't help but shout. The popular novel website www.reminx.com has almost all the books you want to read. It's much more stable than the average website and updates faster. It's all text and no advertisements. Lin Tian turned around and smiled at Su Shu. I'm fine. I'm fine. He was reminiscing about the feeling of the sword just now. You just executed the shocking wind sword formula with your bare hands? And it seemed to be stronger than when you were holding a sword. How did you do it? That's too amazing. Su Shu's eyes widened. Lin Tian smiled. Well, it's a secret. Half a month ago, when he first practiced the art of controlling the formation, he discovered a secret. Without a weapon in hand, the sword aura he released through the sword pattern in the heart of his right hand would be much stronger than when he had a sword in hand. Therefore, just now, he directly threw the long sword in his hand at the red-faced ghost. Then, he executed the sword of lightning with his bare hands. The result was the same as when he first experimented with it. Without a sword in hand, the sword of lightning was indeed more powerful. Faster, more accurate, stronger. This move is really overbearing. Gently clenching his right hand, Lin Tian felt a burst of comfort in his heart as he recalled the blow just now. Su Shu widened her beautiful eyes and said with a grimace, "Another secret?" Ahem. Lin Tian coughed dryly and quickly looked away. However, at this moment, under the opposite vines, he suddenly saw a flash of white light. "What is that?" Lin Tian was puzzled. Slowly approaching the opposite side, Lin Tian came to the front of the vines, pulled open the surface of the vines, and was suddenly shocked. "What's wrong?" Su Shu curiously came over and suddenly took a step back in fright. Under the vines, there were dense white bones. It was unknown how long they had been there, but they were glowing faintly in the dim nest. Lin Tian was a bit strange. Why were there so many white bones here? And it seemed that these white bones belonged to humans. He thought for a moment and suddenly understood. They should be the disciples of the Marshall House who were captured by the red-faced ghost. Su Shu was moved and nodded. Yes, it should be so. There were many white bones under the vines, so many that it made one's scalp tingle. However, at this moment, Lin Tian's eyes lit up. Pulling open a piece of white bones, he saw many black things the size of a baby's fist. This is... Su Shu's eyes widened as she read. Lin Tian took out a black thing and wiped off the accumulated dust on it. Suddenly, a faint halo flashed, lingering with a little bit of spiritual energy fluctuations. "It's beast cores." Lin Tian on Dao. Staring down, Lin Tian's hands moved at the same time, and soon the surrounding vines and some white bones were cleared away. Suddenly, many similar black things appeared below. At a rough glance, there were about 500 of them. These are all beast cores. "Oh my God!" Su Shu couldn't help but exclaim. Lin Tian said, "The owners of these white bones should be the disciples of the Marshall House who entered the Greenwind Ridge to temper themselves. When these people were tempering themselves in the Greenwind Ridge, they inevitably killed many monsters and collected a lot of beast cores. Later, they were captured by the red-faced ghost and died, but the beast cores were preserved." Su Shu nodded. This analysis was very reasonable. The two looked at each other and couldn't help but reveal a happy expression. More than 500 beast cores. This number was really shocking. Moreover, most of these beast cores were level 2 beast cores, and there were many level 3 beast cores. During the 7 days of the trial, they still had to rest and couldn't hunt monsters all the time. Therefore, it was really difficult to collect more than 500 beast cores in 7 days. But now, this is really a blessing in disguise. Lin Tian smiled. Su Shu's beautiful eyes lit up. "Counting it like this, we've earned a lot." Lin Tian nodded and said, "Well, thanks to you, the bait." "What did you say?" Su Shu stared at him. Lin Tian laughed and didn't say anything. He began to organize the beast cores under the white bones. Beside him, Su Shu didn't stay idle. She helped Lin Tian to clean up the bones. It wasn't until 6 hours later that the two cleaned up all the beast cores. A total of 589 beast cores. Among them, there are 63 level 1 beast cores, 341 level 2 beast cores, and 185 level 3 beast cores. Lin Tian Dao. He prepared 5 cloth bags. At this moment, 3 of them were full. We've earned. Su Shu looked like a money grubber. Her eyes narrowed into crescents, and her face was full of happiness. "It's only been a day. For the remaining 6 days, we can even sleep." "We? Sleep?" "Su Shu, don't tempt me." Lin Tian coughed dryly. Su Shu was stunned. Then she kicked Lin Tian's foot fiercely and said with a red face, "Shameless. Stinky hooligan." Lin Tian laughed loudly. He stood up and walked to the other side. He pulled out the long sword from the ground and swept it over. He found that there were a few nicks on the blade. He couldn't help but sigh. The red-faced ghost claws were really tough. He walked to the red-faced ghost corpse and cut open its head. He took out a beast core the size of a fist. This beast core was very bright, like a luminous pearl, illuminating the surroundings. It's worthy of being a peak level 3 beast comparable to a 9th body refinement layer. Even its beast core is so overbearing. Lin Tian was astonished. Sushu was also a little surprised. Her big eyes blinked. Speaking of which, you're only at the 6th body refinement layer. You actually killed a level 3 red face ghost that was comparable to a 9th sky body refinement layer. You're simply a monster. Sushu stared at Lin Tiandao. Lin Tian smiled. He was actually just taking advantage of the situation. Although the red-faced ghost was comparable to a 9th sky body refinement layer, it was not on the same level as a real 9th sky body refinement layer martial artist. After all, it did not have the intelligence of a human martial artist. How about we go out first? Lin Tian asked. Sushu quickly nodded. Of course we have to go out. Let's go immediately. This senior sister does not want to stay here. The red-faced ghost's nest was very dark. In addition, there were many white bones pulled out from under the vines. For a moment, the air was intertwined with a rotten smell, making people feel very uncomfortable. Sushu stood up and walked out of the cave. Lin Tian followed behind. The two of them quickly walked out of the cave. At this moment, the sky outside had already darkened. The curtain of night shrouded the earth. Only bits and pieces of starlight sprinkled down, covering the Greenwind Ridge with a layer of silver light. What do we do now? Let's just go back to the martial house. Sushu said. Although the outer house ranking trial was set for 7 days, that was only the maximum time limit. In fact, in these 7 days, the outer house disciples who entered the Greenwind Ridge could leave the Greenwind Ridge at any time. Of course, once they left the Greenwind Ridge in the middle of the trial, it meant that the person's ranking trial had ended. The result would be based on the beast cores collected when they left. Now, in addition to the beast cores collected before, she and Lin Tianyi had a total of over 600 beast cores. Over 600 beast cores was not a small number. It was enough for the two of them to be ranked in the top 10 of the outer house disciples. This senior sister does not have any ambition. As long as old man Mu is satisfied, it's fine. Let's go back. Sushu cheerfully said. Lin Tian was speechless. He pulled Sushu and said, it's only been a day. Relying on ourselves, how can we collect 600 beast cores? Do you think the martial house's instructors are stupid? If we go back now and they ask, how are we going to explain? Sushu stared blankly. Then she suddenly understood. Oh right. Why didn't I think of this? After a pause, she looked at Lin Tian and said, then tell me, what should we do now? Lin Tian thought for a while and said, let's find a place to rest first. Then we'll continue to hunt demonic beasts and collect beast cores. Since we're already here, we should properly sharpen ourselves. Also, collecting beast cores is not a bad thing. The next day, in an old forest in the Greenwind Ridge, an astonishing sword chi whistled, followed by a mournful cry. A demonic beast that looked like a rhinoceros had its throat pierced by a sword. With a bang, it fell into a pool of blood. A 3rd-level demonic beast, iron-tailed rhinoceros, comparable to a 7th-level body refinement cultivator, was actually killed by a single sword strike. This is a monster. Not far away, Sushu's eyes widened. Chapter 45. In the rank 3 demonic beast area, in an old forest, ear-piercing sword cries kept reverberating. Sword chi flew in all directions, and who knew how many old trees were affected? Branches and leaves were destroyed, and even the main branches were chopped off. Shadow fist, fire fist, sword of destruction, sword of lightning, sword of shocking wind. Cold voices kept ringing. First it was scorching hot. Then there seemed to be thunder in the air. This lunatic, pervert, demon, not far away, Sushu, who was watching the battle, grimaced. It had been 6 days since they entered the Greenwind Ridge. In these 6 days, she had been watching Lin Tian fight. Whenever a demonic beast appeared, Lin Tian would rush out without hesitation. She didn't even have the chance to make a move. Pooh! Blood splattered. Lin Tian jumped up. With a spin of his sword, he pierced the forehead of the dark flame bull. With a bang, the dark flame bull's huge, demonic body fell to the ground, dying a violent death. Phew! Lin Tian let out a long breath and wiped the sweat off his forehead. The dark flame bull was a demonic beast comparable to the 8th level of the refinement realm. He used almost all of his skills and used all of his martial skills to wear down the opponent's strength before killing it. Taking out the beast core of the dark flame bull and putting away his sword, Lin Tian's face revealed a slight smile. Sushu, how many beast cores do you have? After these days of training, Lin Tian's control of the shocking wind sword art had become more skillful, almost to the point of perfection. And the strength of the shocking wind sword art also made him very satisfied. It was worthy of being a martial skill that no one had been able to cultivate to the perfection stage. It was really very powerful, increasing his combat strength by a lot. Su Shu stepped forward and said, 656. These days, Lin Tian chose to challenge some of the stronger demonic beasts. Therefore, the speed of collecting beast cores was very slow. Sushu was naturally not dissatisfied with this. She didn't care much about it. Moreover, in these few days, she had personally seen Lin Tian repeatedly use the shocking wind sword art. She felt that she had benefited a lot and learned a lot. Oh, it's the last day. Let's go back. Lin Tian smiled. After a few days of tempering, other than resting, he was almost always fighting with demonic beasts. His cultivation had also increased by quite a bit, and he felt that he could step into the 7th layer of the refinement realm at any time. Let's go. Sushu nodded repeatedly. She had long wanted to go out. Immediately, the two of them walked towards the 9-yang martial house. Both of their cultivations were not low, so their speed was naturally not slow. The old trees on both sides quickly retreated. Not long after, 3 figures suddenly appeared in their field of vision. One of them looked somewhat familiar. That is, Lin Tianwei narrowed his eyes. In front of them, the 3 figures had obviously sensed the approach of Lin Tian and Su Shu, and they all turned their heads to look at them. One of them was slightly surprised. This person was dressed in golden robes and had a handsome appearance. He gave people the impression of a noble young master. It was Zhou Hao. Shu. Zhou Hao greeted them and blocked in front of Lin Tian and Su Shu. Su Shu stopped and frowned. She said unhappily, Zhou Hao, I've told you many times, don't call me Shu. I'm not familiar with you. Zhou Hao's eyes flashed with a haze, but he maintained a smile on his face. He looked beside Su Shu and seemed to have just noticed Lin Tian's appearance. He smiled and said, so Brother Lin is also here. Oh, right. I wonder how Brother Lin's preparation for the battle in 3 months' time is? I think it should be about time. Lin Tian shrugged and said, Brother Zhou, you don't have to worry about this. Brother Zhou, you should worry about yourself. If the number 1 person in the outer house is kicked out of the arena by a newcomer like me in 3 months' time, the scene will probably be a little ugly. Zhou Hao narrowed his eyes and stared at Lin Tian with a sense of pressure. He said, oh, it seems that Brother Lin is very confident that he can beat me. Who knows? Lin Tianyi had an indifferent expression. Suddenly, the corner of his mouth curled into an evil smile. He took Su Shu's hand and said, Shu, let's go. Su Shu's cheeks turned red, and she said angrily, you rascal. However, she did not say anything about the way Lin Tian addressed her. She also did not withdraw her hand from Lin Tian's. This scene caused Zhou Hao's face to darken. Then, Brother Zhou, see you later, Lin Tian said with a smile. Holding Su Shu's hand, he purposely put on an affectionate expression and walked around Zhou Hao to the 9-yang martial house. Stop right there. You're just a newcomer. How dare you talk to young Master Zhou like that? You got guts. At this moment, a cold voice rang out. The 2 young men behind Zhou Hao stood out. One was dressed in green, and the other was dressed in gray. Both of them stared at Lin Tian with an unfriendly expression. Lin Tian did not seem to have heard the 2 of them. He held Su Shu's hand and continued walking towards the 9-yang martial house. Chi! A sword ray landed beside his feet, leaving a deep sword mark on the ground. Are you deaf? The young man in gray looked coldly at Lin Tian. The long sword in his hand flickered with a dark light. Staring at the deep sword mark beside his feet, Lin Tian turned around and let go of Su Shu's hand. He looked at the young man in gray who was holding the long sword and asked, "Were you the one who attacked me just now?" "I was the one who attacked you." "So what?" The young man in gray said with disdain. "So what?" Lin Tianling smiled. His body flashed and appeared in front of the young man in gray. He raised his hand and slapped him. "Pa!" A loud slap was heard, and the young man in gray was sent flying. Lin Tian clapped his hands. "Nothing much. I'll just beat you up." Looking at this scene, Zhou Hao frowned. The young man in green was also surprised. So fast. Su Shu was surprised. Although she had seen Lin Tian's terrifying speed in the past few days, she could not help but be shocked when she saw it again. For a cultivator at the sixth firmament of body refinement, this speed was indeed abnormal. Not far away, the young man in gray was bleeding from the corner of his mouth. Half of his face was swollen, and there was a clear handprint on it. He looked at Lin Tian with shame and anger. Boom! The young man in gray stood up suddenly, and his body emitted a terrifying sword intent. Not bad. The timing of your sneak attack was also very good. The young man in gray looked at Lin Tian ferociously. You dare to attack me? Your right hand. Wait to be crippled. Not far behind, Su Shu whispered to Lin Tian. Su Ho ranked 25th in the outer house. Peak of the 7th firmament of body refinement. He has mastered a superior body refinement level martial skill, the Lingyu sword technique. Be careful, this sword technique is not easy to deal with. In comparison, although the people from the Mo family are also at the 7th firmament of body refinement, they are much weaker than Su Ho. Peak of the 7th firmament of body refinement, superior body refinement level martial skill. Lin Tian narrowed his eyes. Just at this moment, Su Ho had already made his move. In the blink of an eye, the surroundings were densely covered with sword shadows, revealing numerous phantoms. The sword light he slashed out was constantly changing directions at a strange angle as it blasted towards Lin Tian. Lingyu's sword, Su Ho shouted coldly. Whoosh! 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 The sword aura flashed, and the sound of it breaking through the air was constantly emitted. However, the sword aura's trajectory was very vague. Behind him, the green-clothed man crossed his arms and said, Lingyu's sword, as the name suggests, the sword aura is like a ghost. Normal people would not be able to grasp the direction of the sword aura, and would unknowingly discover that they have already been hit by the sword aura. After not seeing him for a few days, Su Ho's control of this sword technique has become even more skillful. I reckon that even I would have some trouble facing him. The green-clothed man's name was Lu Sheng, ranked 23rd in the outer house. Very good. Zhou Hao nodded. Lu Sheng smiled and said, to be praised by young Master Zhou as very good. I believe that Su Ho will be very happy. Right now, young Master Zhou should appreciate the ugliness of that newcomer. He just entered the martial house and actually dared to disobey young Master Zhou. He really does not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Let Su Ho teach him a good lesson. Whoosh! 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 The sword aura flashed, and finally, the dense sword aura all fell towards Lin Tian. These sword auras were very strange, constantly changing directions. It was very troublesome. After observing them for a few breaths, Lin Tian found that it was very difficult to grasp their trajectory. Humph! However, Lin Tian did not care about this, and only responded with a cold snort. If you can't see clearly, then destroy them all, he coldly said. A fierce and overbearing sword aura spread out from his body. The shocking wind sword, which had already reached perfection, was suddenly unleashed. A dense silver sword screen appeared, spreading out in a 360-degree circle. Kong! The sound of the sword was ear-piercing, shaking people's souls. Chi-chi-chi sounds continuously rang out, and the sword aura of Suho's sword aura was all shattered. Almost at the same time, several sword auras of the shocking wind sword pierced through the sword aura of the sword aura and stabbed into Suho's body. Ah! Suho screamed. His whole body was dripping with blood as he flew backwards in a sorry state. Such a scene instantly shocked everyone present. How is this possible? Lu Sheng was shocked. A cultivator at the 6th layer of body refinement actually pierced through the sword aura of Suho, who was at the peak of the 7th layer of body refinement, and even injured Suho. His face was filled with disbelief. Zhou Hao's face was heavy. He recognized the sword skill that Lin Tian displayed. It was actually the most difficult sword skill in the martial house, the shocking windsword art. And from the looks of it, Lin Tian seemed to have already cultivated it to the large success stage. Brother Lin, we are all brothers from the same sect. Your moves are too vicious, Zhou Hao said in a deep voice. Lin Tian disdainfully smiled. When he said that he was going to cripple my right hand and use a high-level body refinement martial skill, I didn't see you stand out and say anything. Now that I have defeated him, you jump out and say that I am vicious. Isn't yours but a bit too crooked? Zhou Hao's face sank. He did not injure you. When he injures me, you will probably be secretly laughing, Lin Tian said sarcastically. Bastard, how can you speak to young Master Zhou like that? Lu Sheng stood out and coldly stared at Lin Tian. A mere newcomer, not only did you not show respect to your senior brother, but you also did not show any remorse. You really lack education. Today, as your senior brother, I will take the place of your derelict parents and teach you what etiquette is. Lin Tian's eyes were cold, almost cruel as they swept towards Lu Sheng. You say that again, he said coldly. At this moment, his body suddenly emitted a murderous aura. His entire person was like a ghost. Lu Sheng's face changed, and he could not help but take a step back. This true murderous aura made him unable to help but feel a sense of fear. Chapter 46. Rex. Lin Tian's aura was somewhat terrifying. It was the kind of murderous aura that was accumulated from killing people. It was not something that could be obtained from killing demonic beasts. This murderous aura was cold and ruthless, which was indeed very intimidating. Zhou Hao frowned and stopped Lu Sheng, who was retreating. He then looked at Lin Tian. Brother Lin, aren't you being too overbearing? Overbearing? Lin Tian was disdainful. You came here to stop us, casually scolded us, and now you have the nerve to say that I'm overbearing? Aren't you too shameless? We're senior brothers. What's wrong with letting you stay and scolding you? Lu Sheng shouted. Senior brother? Lin Tian glanced at Lu Sheng indifferently. Are you worthy of being my senior brother? You. Lu Sheng's face was filled with anger. Zhou Hao held Lu Sheng down and looked at Lin Tian. He said in a deep voice, no matter what, Brother Lin has gone too far today. Marquis Su has been injured so badly. You should at least apologize. Apologize? Stop joking. Lin Tian snorted. Pulling Sushu up, Lin Tian turned and left. Don't go. Lu Sheng glanced at Zhou Hao and gritted his teeth. His body emitted a powerful aura, wanting to stop Lin Tian. Rumble! At this moment, the earth trembled and a violent hurricane suddenly rolled up, causing the old trees around to sway wildly, as if an earthquake had occurred. At this moment, the level 3 demonic beast area was suddenly filled with demonic aura. Not far away, a cloud of black sand rolled up, and then the earth trembled even more violently. As far as the eye could see, a dense group of demonic beasts was rushing towards them. The formation was appalling. These demonic beasts have gone berserk. Lin Tian's expression changed. Boom! A loud sound came out, and the earth trembled even more violently. Lin Tian looked into the distance and saw a huge octopus-like demonic beast following behind the group of demonic beasts. This demonic beast was about 50 feet tall, and its eyes were as big as footballs. The level 4 centipede beast, why would it appear in this area? Sushu's eyes widened. A grade 4 demonic beast was comparable to a divine Vane realm expert. Ignore it, let's leave first, Lin Tian said in a deep voice. Without any hesitation, he pulled Sushu and turned to leave. Facing such a group of berserk demonic beasts, staying here was simply courting death. Roar! A scalp-numbing cry rang out, and Lin Tianji felt as if his eardrums were about to shatter. Behind them, the centipede shook its tentacles, creating a series of cracks in the ground. Lin Tianji and Lin Tianji were both bounced up from the ground. A strange suction force appeared, and Lin Tian and his companion were pulled towards the centipede. Damn it! Lin Tian's expression changed slightly. The suction force was quite strong. He and Sushu's bodies quickly floated towards the centipede. Ah! A shrill scream rang out, and the seriously injured Marquis, Su, was the first to be pulled over. He was caught by one of the centipede's tentacles and directly thrown into its mouth. Such a scene made LV Sheng's face turn pale. Fortunately, there was an old tree beside them. The two of them grabbed onto the trunk of the old tree and were not sucked into the air. Lin Tian was still in the air. He and Sushu were pulled towards the centipede by the suction force, and it was impossible for them to stop. Tilting his head to look at the humongous 100-legged beast behind him, Lin Tian gritted his teeth and grabbed Sushu, who was beside him. Using all his strength, he ferociously threw her back the way he came. This way, he himself floated towards the 100-legged beast even faster. Lin Tian, Sushu's expression changed drastically. Flying towards the centipede even faster, Lin Tian could not control his body to land. He reached in his chest, and with his back facing the crowd, he took out 2 martial fusion rune scrolls that he had prepared before participating in the trial. With a thought, he unfolded them. With a clang, a dense curtain of swords suddenly appeared, wildly slashing towards the centipede. Roar! The centipede roared. The curtain of swords did not hurt it, but the suction force disappeared. Lin Tian landed on the ground, and without hesitation, quickly turned around and rushed back. Roar! Blocked by the curtain of swords, the centipede seemed to be angry, and its dense tentacles frantically swept towards Lin Tian. Lin Tian's expression was solemn, but he was not afraid. He activated the Tianyi Soul technique, and his perception quickly soared. Using the yin-yang steps, he kept flashing between the dense tentacles and quickly distanced himself from the centipede. What kind of movement technique is this? How can he be so fast? LV Sheng was shocked. Lin Tian, be careful, Sushu shouted, and directly ran forward, drawing her sword to attack the centipede. Shu, stop, I'll go help Brother Lin. Zhou Hao stopped Sushu. Passing by Sushu, Zhou Hao quickly came to the front, and a green longsword suddenly appeared in his hand. Brother Lin, I'll help you. As he spoke, a cold light flashed in Zhou Hao's eyes. He waved the long sword in his hand, and instantly, the sky was filled with sword chi, quickly slashing forward. Lin Tian was suspicious. Would Zhou Hao be kind enough to help him? The moment this thought appeared, Lin Tian's expression changed, and his eyes suddenly became extremely cold. Zhou Hao's sword chi attacked. It seemed to be attacking the centipede, but at the same time, it blocked all his escape routes. Originally, he could have used the yin-yang steps to break out, but now Zhou Hao blocked his way. Brother Lin, come out quickly, Zhou Hao shouted with an anxious expression on his face. Lin Tian's eyes were cold, and he quickly used the yin-yang steps to dodge. However, in the middle of a pincer attack with sword chi in front and a beast behind, even he could not protect himself. Suddenly, one of the centipede's tentacles wrapped around his body. Lin Tian, Sushu's expression changed drastically. She quickly rushed out, and the slender sword in her hand slashed out rays of sword chi. Little Shu, you can't go over, Zhou Hao shouted and stopped Sushu. Get out of the way, Sushu shouted angrily, staring at Lin Tian, who was entangled by the centipede. She was so anxious that tears fell from her eyes. Roar! At this moment, the centipede roared again. For a moment, the surrounding black fog surged, and the violent and terrifying demonic aura was vast and mighty, like dark clouds pressing down on the sky. Then, the centipede retreated and quickly disappeared into the distance. As for Lin Tian, he was dragged away as well. Lin Tian, Sushu shouted and was about to chase after him. However, at the same time, there was a dense group of demonic beasts in the area. These demonic beasts were all level 3 demonic beasts, and they seemed to have been driven here by the centipede. After the centipede left, these level 3 demonic beasts attacked Sushu and the others violently. As a result, Sushu's pursuit of the centipede was stopped. "Little Shu, be careful," Zhou Hao shouted. Looking at the direction where the centipede left, Zhou Hao heaved a sigh of relief, and at the same time, a sinister smile appeared on his face. "How dare you fight with me? You're courting death." Zhou Hao snorted in a low voice. Lin Tian's body was entangled by the tentacles of the 100-legged beast. Black clouds rolled in the surroundings, and the demonic qi was unimaginably dense. His hands and legs were bound, making it hard for him to move. He couldn't even struggle. Whoosh! The strong wind whistled in his ears. He could imagine how fast the centipede was moving. After some time, Lin Tian felt that the centipede had stopped. Then his body was thrown out heavily, and he crashed into a stone wall with a bang. Ouch! Lin Tian gritted his teeth and stood up with difficulty. He felt as though a few of the bones in his back were broken. This was a valley, and black demonic aura was intertwined in the surroundings. Lin Tian circulated the Tian One Soul technique, and he could vaguely see a pair of bloodthirsty, demonic eyes through the black, demonic fog. They were cold, cruel, and merciless. He couldn't help but shudder when he saw the look in her eyes. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air was heard. The centipede growled, and its dense tentacles pressed down on Lin Tian. Those tentacles had many sharp teeth, and they looked exceptionally terrifying. It's over. Lin Tian's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. A Class 4 demonic beast was comparable to a divine pulse realm expert. How could he resist it? Wong. Suddenly, something that Lin Tian did not expect happened. The sword inscription on his right hand lit up on its own at this moment, radiating the most resplendent light it had ever emitted. He felt like his right hand was burning. This is... Lin Tian was shocked. At this moment, the centipede's tentacles were already in front of him. Without much time to think, Lin Tian clenched his teeth, opened his right hand, and pushed it out. Clang! A terrifying sword sound was heard, followed by the shriek of the centipede. Lin Tian looked up, and his eyes widened. The centipede was sent flying in a sorry state, and the tentacles that were attacking him had been blasted into pieces. Looking at the shining sword mark on his right hand, Lin Tian was stunned for a moment. Wasn't this a little too frightening? 10 feet away, the centipede let out a cry of fear. Those huge football-like demonic eyes were filled with panic. It used its only dozen tentacles to support itself on the ground and quickly fled into the distance. Lin Tian came back to his senses, and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Still trying to escape? The sword mark on his palm was still shining. He used the duality steps and waved his palm across the air. Boom! It was a casual palm, but it caused the space to tremble. There seemed to be endless sword sounds in the world, and there seemed to be terrifying thunder rumbling in the void. The surrounding wilderness was completely shrouded in a destructive aura. Puff! The powerful centipede exploded with a boom. Blood splattered and dyed a large area of the ground red. Lin Tian gasped. He was once again stunned by the sword mark on his palm. What's the origin of that iron sword? He was shocked. After the iron sword entered his body, the cultivation method appeared in his mind. Then he obtained the unparalleled body movement technique. Then he obtained the art of array control, which strengthened his sword technique. And now, the sword mark displayed such a terrifying, destructive power. Whoosh! A sound was heard. Lin Tian looked up and saw a fist-sized crystal ball falling from the sky. Lin Tian reached out and grabbed it. This is the beast core of the centipede? It actually survived. Lin Tian muttered to himself. Looking at the beast core in his hand, Lin Tian felt an extremely rich spiritual energy. This spiritual energy fluctuation was enough to compare to the 9 Twists essence pill he refined for the first time. It's a pity that human martial artists can't refine the beast core of a demonic beast. Otherwise, this beast core would be enough for me to enter the 7th level of the refinement realm. Lin Tian shook his head and was about to put away the beast core. However, at this moment, something strange happened again. In the palm of his right hand, the sword mark was shining. A hazy divine light suddenly enveloped the beast core in his hand. In an instant, a rich spiritual energy spread and flowed into his body through his right hand. Chapter 47. Lin Tian was shocked. He could clearly feel that the spiritual energy entering his body through his right hand was rich and pure. It was exactly the same feeling as when he refined the 9 Melody Essence elixir a month ago. Could it be? Lin Tian was overjoyed. Taking a deep breath, Lin Tian quickly sat down cross-legged and activated his 4 extremes meridians. Buzz! A faint silver light flashed and bathed his body. Lin Tian calmed his mind and used his true core force to guide the spiritual energy into his flesh and bones. He was pleasantly surprised to find that he could use it to cultivate. Taking another deep breath, Lin Tian suppressed the excitement in his heart and began to cultivate seriously. The centipede was a Class 4 demonic beast and was comparable to a divine pulse realm expert. The spiritual energy contained in the core of such a demonic beast was unimaginable. At this moment, with the help of the sword pattern in his right hand, the core seemed to be decomposed. The spiritual energy contained in it quickly spread and flowed into Lin Tian's body. Refine my flesh and blood. Refine my bones. Lin Tian muttered to himself. His eyes were calm and firm as he endured the excruciating pain of body tempering and guided the spirit energy into his flesh, bones, and tendons. Under the guidance of his true essence, the spirit energy seemed to have turned into sharp blades, madly cutting into his flesh, bones, and tendons. The so-called body tempering was to first destroy it and then rebuild it. This process was destined to be painful. Lin Tian activated his 4 extremes meridians again and again, completely ignoring the pain of body tempering. His eyes were calm throughout. After an unknown period of time, the sound of a heavenly drum came from his body and white smoke rose from the top of his head. At this point, 12 hours quickly passed. The sky darkened. Lin Tian sat cross-legged in the valley. The core in his right hand was about to lose its luster and looked no different from an ordinary stone. It was at this time that Lin Tianhao shuddered. Boom! With him as the center, a majestic aura quickly spread out in all directions. The aura lasted for a few dozen breaths. After dozens of breaths, all of the aura disappeared, and the light on the centipede's beast core dimmed completely. At this time, Lin Tian finally opened his eyes, 2 rays of light flashing through them. Exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, Lin Tian stood up. 7th layer of body refinement. He clenched his left fist and immediately felt a tremendous change. His strength had increased by at least 2 times. Crack! At this moment, a crisp sound rang out from his right hand. The 100-legged beast core had all of its spiritual chi essence sucked away, turning it into an ordinary stone. As Lin Tian activated the true essence in his body, a large crack suddenly appeared on the stone. Lin Tian was shocked when he saw the ruined beast core in front of him. Because monster beasts and humans had different physiques. Even though monster beast cores contained an endless amount of spiritual energy, human cultivators were unable to directly refine them. They could only use them as special materials, such as alchemy and refining tools. But now, he was able to directly absorb the spiritual energy from the monster beast core, refining it as if it was a pill. This was simply a miracle. If news of this were to spread, who knew how many people would be stunned? This sword mark, staring at the sword mark in his hand, Lin Tianji felt his heart palpitate. This thing was too mysterious. At this moment, the sword mark in his hand had already dimmed. After staring at it for a few breaths, the surprise on Lin Tian's face disappeared and was replaced by ecstasy. With this sword mark, in the future, wouldn't he have an additional way to increase his cultivation compared to ordinary people? He could rely on refining monster beast cores to increase his strength. Thinking of this, Lin Tian could not help but laugh excitedly. As he laughed, his face became cold again. Zhou, just you wait. If I don't kill you in 2 months, I'll change my surname to yours. Lin Tianling murmured to himself. After calming himself down, Lin Tian began to look around. This place was a valley that was neither too big nor too small. It seemed to be the 100-legged beast's lair. Carefully looking around, Lin Tian discovered that this place was littered with bones. There were both human bones and demonic beast bones. Of course, the majority of them were demonic beast bones. After looking around, he did not find any monster beast cores. Let's leave first. When we get back, I'll use the 100 Spirits grass as the foundation to start refining my organs. Lin Tian muttered to himself. He got the 100 Spirits grass from Guzheng. It was a spiritual medicine for refining the organs. It was worth nearly 100,000 spirit coins. It had a miraculous effect on refining the organs. He could not wait to use the 100 Spirits grass for the next step of his cultivation. Moreover, staying in this demonic beast's lair made him feel very uncomfortable. Striding out of the valley, what appeared in front of him was a denser old forest. The tree trunks were thicker, and the monster chi in the air was denser. He could not help but feel a chill down his spine. Roar! The roar of the monster beast echoed in the old forest, shaking the earth. With the help of the weak moonlight, Lin Tian saw huge demonic beasts. Although they were not as big as the centipedes, they were not too far off. These demonic beasts were emitting extremely terrifying waves of energy. Compared to the red-faced ghost he killed, these demonic beasts were much, much more powerful. They were simply not on the same level. This place, could it be a Class 4 monster beast area? Lin Tian swallowed his saliva. Calming himself down, Lin Tian hid in the valley and carefully looked outside. Soon, half an hour passed. Lin Tian sadly found that he was really in a Class 4 monster beast area. F***CK. Lin Tian suddenly had the urge to chop someone up. If he wanted to return to the Nanyang Martial House, he had to cross this Class 4 monster beast area. However, this area was filled with Class 4 monster beasts. The weakest one was comparable to an expert at the early stage of the Divine Range realm. He was only at the 7th stage of the Body Refinement realm. Crossing this kind of monster beast area was simply a narrow escape. Although he had relied on the sword pattern to chop the 100-legged beast, those 2 palms had drained almost all of his true essence. Moreover, he found that he had only accidentally triggered the sword pattern. Under normal circumstances, he would not have been able to unleash such power. This is bad. Thinking of this, Lin Tian could not help but smile bitterly. He wanted to immediately drag Zhou Hao out and chop him up 1,000 times. Calming himself down, he took a deep breath and slowly walked out of the valley. Although the Class 4 monster beast area was dangerous, he had no choice but to leave. He could not stay here and cultivate until he reached the Divine Range realm, right? Wouldn't he have to cultivate for a long time? I have the yin-yang steps and 2 martial fusion pattern scrolls. I will deal with it carefully. Lin Tian muttered to himself. Taking advantage of the dark night, Lin Tian flashed out of the valley and cautiously headed towards the Class 3 monster beast area. Roar! Roar! In the Class 4 monster beast area, the roars of monster beasts could be heard from time to time. It was so loud that Lin Tian's eardrums were a little numb. He carefully hid in the darkness and tried his best to restrain his aura. Like a ghost, he shuttled back and forth in the old forest. Dong! Suddenly, the earth shook as if a giant was walking. Lin Tian stopped and hid behind an old tree. He looked into the distance and saw an ape-like monster beast fighting with a crocodile-like monster beast covered in scales. As they fought, the air was filled with blood. The surrounding old trees collapsed one by one, and huge rocks were shattered into pieces. The scene was extremely horrifying. Lin Tian could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. This scene was indeed a little frightening. Quietly retreat. After saying this to himself, Lin Tian carefully left. The night shrouded the old forest, but the monster beasts were still very active. Not long after, Lin Tian was stared at by a pair of ghostly blue monster eyes. It was a strange monster beast that was about 10 feet tall. Although its body was not very large, the aura it emitted was exceptionally terrifying. It was not much worse than the centipede. With a ruthless roar, the monster beast stirred up a fishy wind and directly pounced on Lin Tian. F***CK. With a loud curse, Lin Tian used the yin-yang steps and quickly escaped. Whoosh! 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 His speed was very fast. He shuttled through the old forest, bringing about bursts of air-piercing sounds. However, the monster beast that was chasing him was not slow either. The distance between the two was rapidly closing. Turning his head to take a look, Lin Tian's footsteps did not change. Instead, his right hand reached into his bosom and took out a martial fusion rune scroll that he had long prepared. After inserting his thoughts into it, he directly threw it at the strange demonic beast behind him. Clang! For a moment, an ear-piercing sword hum resounded in all directions. The silver sword screen continuously slashed down. The monster beast let out a low roar. Instantly, a gust of violent wind swept up. After 3 breaths, the violent wind dispersed. The martial fusion pattern scroll of the startling wind sword left several bloody marks on the monster beast's body. As for Lin Tian, he had disappeared from its sight. Roar! The monster beast was furious. It raised its head and roared, causing the surrounding old trees to violently shake. 300 feet away, Lin Tian heard this furious roar and could not help but let out a sigh of relief. "I've finally gotten rid of it," Lin Tian muttered to himself. Thinking about it, Lin Tian suddenly felt somewhat fortunate that he had prepared a few martial fusion pattern scrolls before entering the Greenwind Ridge. Otherwise, encountering such a situation would truly be somewhat troublesome. Although he could also slash out the startling wind sword at any time, using the startling wind sword not only took time, but also consumed true essence. It was extremely disadvantageous to his escape. There's still 1 martial fusion pattern scroll left. I must be more careful, Lin Tian muttered to himself. Hiding behind an old tree, he carefully looked around. After confirming that there was no danger nearby, he moved again. Using the yin-yang steps, he quickly rushed towards the level 3 monster beast area. 3 days later, at the edge of the level 2 monster beast area of the Greenwind Ridge, a shabbily dressed youth held a broken longsword in his hand. His hair was disheveled, and his body was covered in mud. He slightly staggered as he walked, not much different from a beggar. This youth was Lin Tian. "I've finally made it out," Lin Tian cursed. In 3 days, the last martial fusion pattern scroll of the startling wind sword art was also consumed. After that, in order to avoid the terrifying monster beasts in the level 4 monster beast area, he buried himself in piles of rocks, hid in thorns, and hid in dense branches. It was as miserable as it could be. Most importantly, in these 3 days, in order to fill his stomach, he even ate a lot of grass. Chapter 48. Rex. After passing through the Class 2 Demonic Beast area and the Class 1 Demonic Beast area, Lin Tian arrived at the stone door leading to the Nanyang Martial House at Greenwind Ridge. His miserable appearance shocked the 2 deacons of the Martial House who were guarding the door. They thought that he was a barbarian. Lin Tian was speechless. After passing through the stone door, Lin Tian increased his speed. He didn't want the other people in the Martial House to see his sorry state. It wouldn't be a good thing. Roughly a quarter of an hour later, he returned to his residence. With a creak sound, he pushed open the door, seeing Su Shu currently accompanying Lin Shi. "Brother, you're back." Lin Shi happily welcomed him. She looked up and asked curiously, "Sister Su, Didn't you say that you had something to do far away and would be delayed for a long time? Hmm? Far away? Lin Tian was curious. He looked at Sushu and saw that Sushu's face was slightly pale, but her eyes were wide open. You. Sushu pointed at Lin Tian as if she had seen a ghost. I'm fine. Lin Tian smiled. Sushu quickly walked forward and carefully poked Lin Tian a few times. Her face immediately revealed a happy expression. You're fine? Sushu's face was full of vigor. Lin Tian's heart skipped a beat. Did Sushu think that he was dead? Thinking about it, when he came back, Sushu was accompanying Lin Shi. Her mental state was a little bad and she looked like her soul had left her body. She even told Lin Shi that she had to go far away and would be delayed for a long time. Lin Tian immediately understood. Looking at Sushu again, he was a little touched. I'm really fine. Although it's a little polite, I still have to thank you. Lin Tian said sincerely. This girl, who he had just met, was really good to him and Lin Shi. Who wants you to thank me? Sushu kicked Lin Tian's leg. She was happy and angry at the same time. Lin Tian smiled. He knew that she was worried about him, so he naturally didn't mind. Lin Shi saw that Lin Tian's clothes were torn and covered in mud. She immediately went to another room to prepare hot water. So obedient. Sushu smiled. She often came to accompany Lin Shi. Although it was related to Lin Tian, more importantly, Lin Shi was very likable. My Lin Tian's sister, of course. Sister. Lin Tian smiled. Sushu rolled her eyes. What are you so proud of? Master and Elder Sherdong also went to look for you, but they couldn't find you. Lin Tian was a little surprised. Sushu nodded. After returning to the martial house a few days ago, she immediately found Mu Qing and told her that Lin Tian was in danger. Coincidentally, Sherdong was also there. The two of them immediately went to the Greenwind Ridge. Unfortunately, the Greenwind Ridge was too big. It was too difficult to find a person in it. The two of them searched for an entire day without any results. Lin Tian was moved. He was even more grateful to Mu Qing and Sherdong. Patting Lin Tian, Sushu asked, what happened after that? Sushu was actually a little surprised. The 100-legged beast was an existence comparable to divine Vein Realm experts. After being dragged away by the 100-legged beast, Lin Tian, who was in the refinement realm, actually came back alive. After the 100-legged beast dragged me to its nest, it seemed to have eaten its fill and temporarily ignored me. Then, I carefully escaped when it wasn't paying attention. After that, Lin Tian spoke tirelessly. Other than the part where he killed the 100-legged beast and refined its beast core, he spoke the truth about everything else. Of course, he naturally couldn't tell her about the martial fusion rune scroll. Eaten its fill? Ignored you? You took the opportunity to escape? Sushu stared. That was possible? That's right. Lin Tian nodded without blushing or skipping a beat. Sushu was a little suspicious, but she didn't dwell on this issue. Forget it. It's best that you survived. But speaking of which, you're really heaven-defying. You actually passed through the level 400-legged beast area unscathed. The level 400-legged beast area was filled with terrifying 100-legged beasts that were comparable to divine Vein Realm experts. Lin Tian actually walked out of the level 400-legged beast area unscathed. This really surprised Sushu. Lin Tian was speechless. Which eye of yours saw that I was unscathed? I have a lot of injuries on my body. Umph. Sushu snorted. After a pause, Sushu seemed to have thought of something. She said, by the way, I have something for you. She turned and walked to the side. Not long after, she actually took out a long sword. The long sword was more gorgeous than Lin Tian's previous sword. It looked even stronger. This is? Lin Tian's pupils shrank. With his keen perception, he felt that this sword was very unusual. Middle-grade spiritual weapon, sword of origin. Sushu said, middle-grade spiritual weapon? Lin Tian was shocked. The world of martial artists was mysterious and fantastical. There were elixirs, formations, and naturally powerful weapons. Weapons were also divided into different levels in the martial arts world. Ordinary weapons aside, Weapons of higher levels were temporarily divided into 3 levels: spiritual weapon, precious weapon, supreme treasure, and immortal weapon. Each level was further divided into 3 grades: high, medium, and low. Lin Tian was a little surprised. Sort of origin. Where did this come from? The Martial House's reward. Su Shu said. The Martial House's reward? Lin Tian's eyes moved. He seemed to have thought of something. Su Shu nodded and said, "A few days ago, during the Outer House ranking trial, we collected a total of more than 600 beast cores. I thought you were dead, so I wanted to at least let you die with honor. So I put all the beast cores under your name. The final result was the 2nd place of the Outer House. This sort of origin is the reward. Die with honor." Lin Tian was touched and amused. Taking the sword of origin from Su Shu, Lin Tian tried to run the sword skill and found that it was much stronger than usual. Middle-grade spiritual weapon is tougher than ordinary weapons. At the same time, it can increase your strength by about 20%. Su Shu said. Lin Tian nodded. It does increase my strength by about 20%. The biggest effect of a high-level precious weapon was to enhance the martial artist's strength and combat effectiveness. Low-grade spiritual weapons could increase strength by about 10%. Middle-grade spiritual weapons could increase strength by 20%, and high-grade spiritual weapons could increase strength by 30%. When it came to precious weapons, supreme treasures, and immortal weapons, it could increase strength by even more. Lin Tian held the sword of origin and waved it a few times. He suddenly felt that it was easy to use. Putting away the sword of origin and looking at Su Shu again, Lin Tian could not help but feel a little embarrassed. He said, "You put all the beast cores under my name. Aren't you yourself?" Su Shu naturally knew what Lin Tian wanted to say and did not care at all. "Middle-grade spiritual weapon. I have it myself. It's the sword I used last time. You've seen it before. It's called Green Thunder." Su Shu said. Lin Tianwei was stunned, and then he quickly remembered. It turns out to be a high-grade spiritual weapon. Lin Tian nodded. No wonder when he saw Su Shu use that sword last time, the last sword was a little too strong. It turned out that it was a middle-grade spiritual weapon, and he was not surprised that Su Shu had a middle-grade spiritual weapon. After all, she was Mu Qing's disciple. After thinking for a while, Lin Tian asked, "Who is the Outer House champion this time?" "It's still Zhou Hao. He collected a total of 491 beast cores, but most of them are 3rd-grade beast cores. His overall score is the highest." Su Shu said, "It's really him." Lin Tian nodded. His expression was calm, but he was sneering in his heart. "Zhou Hao. 2 months later, he must kill this person. What's wrong?" Seeing Lin Tian's strange expression, Su Shu asked. Not long ago in Greenwind Ridge, Zhou Hao deliberately plotted against Lin Tian. Su Shu did not understand. Even LV Sheng, who was with Zhou Hao, did not know. This kind of thing could only be felt by Lin Tian himself. "Nothing." Lin Tian shook his head. Su Shu made an "oh" sound and did not care too much. After thinking for a while, she said, "By the way, in this Outer House ranking trial, the reward for the 1st place is an upper-grade spiritual weapon." Upper-grade spiritual weapon. Lin Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. Previously in Greenwind Ridge, he really felt Zhou Hao's strength. He was indeed very strong. Now that the other party had an upper-grade spiritual weapon, his combat strength was probably even stronger. However, Lin Tian only thought for a moment and did not care. So what if it was an upper-grade spiritual weapon? It only increased his combat strength by 10%. It was not a big deal. It could make him stronger. What's wrong? Su Shu frowned. Nothing. Lin Tian smiled and shook his head. The sky gradually darkened. Soon, Su Shu left here and walked back to her residence. For the past few days, she had thought that Lin Tian had died, so she had been in low spirits, unable to sleep or eat well. Now that she saw that Lin Tian was safe and sound, her entire body instantly relaxed, and she only wanted to quickly go back and have a good sleep. Lin Tian smiled as he watched Su Shu leave. At this time, Lin Shi just happened to prepare the hot water. Lin Tian washed up and changed into a clean set of clothes. After resting for 2 hours, he went to the top pavilion. At this moment, stars had faintly appeared in the sky. Lin Tian ran the 4 extremes scripture, allowing his essence, qi, and spirit to rise bit by bit. After about an hour, with the help of the 4 extreme scripture, his essence, qi, and spirit had reached the peak again. Phew! Exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, Lin Tian's eyes flashed. He took out a small jade bottle from his arms. In the bottle was a strange plant that was about an inch tall and had 3 leaves. This was the 100 Spirits grass, a spiritual medicine used to temper the internal organs. Lin Tian pulled out the cork that blocked the jade bottle. Suddenly, a strong fragrance floated out, making him tremble slightly and feel that the pores on his body were relaxed. Taking a deep breath, he took out the 100 Spirits grass and put it in his mouth and slowly chewed. Suddenly, his whole mouth was filled with a strange fragrance. Carefully and slowly chewing, Lin Tian swallowed the 100 Spirit grass after a short while. Different from the 9 Twists essence pill, after swallowing the 100 Spirits grass, his whole body felt refreshed, as if he was wrapped in a cold spring on a hot summer day. In just a moment, he felt that his essence, qi, and spirit had been strengthened a lot. His breathing was more powerful, and his heart was beating stronger. Lin Tian was surprised. The 100 Spirits grass had only just entered his body, but it had such a miraculous effect. It's worthy of being a spiritual medicine worth nearly 100,000 spirit coins. It's really extraordinary, Lin Tian secretly thought. Putting away his surprise, Lin Tian ran the 4 extreme scripture and guided the special spiritual qi of the 100 Spirits grass to quickly flow into his internal organs. This special spiritual qi completely enveloped his internal organs. Then, he began to inject his true inner force into his internal organs and began the last stage of the body refining stage. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.